OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
7:30, you're welcome along to OTB AM. Eoin and Neil with you right the way through until 10 o'clock this morning. And I have tomorrow down as the bumperest day in sport in the entirety of 2021. There's going to be Gaelic games, there's plenty of rugby, there's obviously the Euros, there's golf. We're covering it all this morning here between now and then. We'd love to hear from you. What are you most excited about? Let us know in the YouTube comments. You can drop us a tweet at Off the Ball. Neil, how are things?
I'm good, Eoin. How are you this morning?
Good now. Naturally, massive reaction to what happened on Off the Ball last night. Sit-down interview between Nathan Murphy and Stephen Kenny. Stephen Kenny came into studio and you were in the building when it became apparent that there was a pretty big story that we hadn't heard before with regards to the Republic of Ireland manager.
Yeah, it was. It was, as I was saying to you a little while ago, it was one of those days that I was saying, probably with a combination of the pandemic and everything that's gone along with it, that we probably haven't had in here for a long time, and that is like just the huge energy that surrounds a big story when we know we've been told something huge. So Stephen Kenny came in yesterday afternoon and we recorded the conversation with himself and Nathan. I was assisting outside recording it, and just for those couple of hours afterwards, the complete energy and buzz around the place was just palpable. Like, so much different to even Wednesday afternoon, where there's a different buzz because we were like scrambling to get some guests and things like that, you know, the usual stuff. But this was like just a huge story, and we knew it was going to be taken over the airways as soon as it hit. And like, even I saw, like, you know, Stephen Doyle tweeting out that afternoon, like warning people, this is coming up at 8:40, this is going to be unbelievable, because he hadn't heard it at that stage. He had just heard what myself and, you know, Nathan or JP were saying outside afterwards, talking through what the huge pieces coming out of it were. And there was so much in it, like not just in terms of when he was giving us details on the health scare he had back in 2019, which, as we know now, was far more serious than it appeared at the time. Like, I was, when Kenny was talking about it yesterday to Nathan during the interview when we were recording it live, it was triggering in my head that this sounds roughly familiar. And I was trying to look back at it, and eventually I figured out, yeah, okay, it was this 2019 time, and it was reported at the time that he felt unwell and went to hospital for a couple of days, and that was it. And in fairness, it's a testament to probably the closeness of the group he had around him at that under-21 side, that, you know, none of that information came to light about how serious it was until Stephen Kenny himself was willing to share the information with everyone.
That's actually really true, that there are so many people who would have been aware of the ins and outs of it and who didn't, I guess, feel the liberty to tell their mates about it, because once you tell one person, it's somebody else that tells the next person, and it just spreads like wildfire. So yeah, 100%. That's something that struck me yesterday as to how we hadn't heard about this before, and it's an astonishing listen. If you haven't heard it yet, it's absolutely worth digging out after you're finished with us this morning. Nathan was in conversation, as I say. It's on all the back pages basically this morning, and we may play just a clip of that most important part of the interview. Stephen Kenny here recalling that incident.
It was very, very serious, because I hadn't realised the course, you know.
And had your heart stopped?
They couldn't get a pulse, they couldn't get a heartbeat, so apparently I'd, you know, turned blue, so it was a certainly serious situation. So I think it was just a blockage of electricity to the heart, the flow of electricity to the heart. And I think one of the, like Jim Crawford said to me at the time, or the following morning, I'm not going to lie to you, Stephen, I thought you were dead, you know, and I thought you were gone. And Kieran Crowley, my press officer with the under-21s, he got on the flight with the players, and he said at the time that he got on the flight for an hour and a half, and he said it was the longest flight of his life, that he got on the flight and they were on the flight and he wasn't sure, he thought it might be dead.
There's so much more to that. It's harrowing listening at times. It's incredible. You can get it now on the OTB SPORTS app and everywhere else you get our content as well. There is so much more to the interview as well. There's a couple of other things we wanted to touch on as well this morning. The act of protest from the Ireland team, in keeping with what the English team are doing and a number of other teams, and obviously the incident in Hungary, them getting booed, them being in a cauldron of hate, really, in Budapest that night when we saw people make Nazi salutes, and obviously the entire crowd booing those Irish players is something that came up in the interview last night. It's always been something I've been interested in from the perspective of Stephen Kenny, and here's exactly what he had to say on the issue of Ireland being booed at that moment in Budapest.
I think, listen, the issue in regarding taking the knee, some people seen it as, you know, I heard to say, just criticism for taking the knee because you're supporting a Marxist organisation. Like
nonsense.
Marxist is distribution of, you know, equality. You know, what is Marxism like? It's does Kapital, for example. It's not Mein Kampf, is it? Do you know what I mean? It's not like, you know, whether you believe or don't believe in. I don't. It's not McCarthyism. You know, I don't think it's. You know, I don't see it as a political issue, taking the knee. I think it's a humanitarian issue. It's just about supporting people.
Yeah.
It's nothing to do with politics, really. It's humanitarian, and I think it's that's the way I see it. So I think our players want to take the knee. Absolutely, fully supportive of them. The booing of the knee, I don't understand it.
Are you able to get a sense?
I don't understand the booing.
And this is maybe a bigger issue that we can get into in a moment. But are you able to get a sense in a camp like that from? Like, it is shocking that a young kid like Adam Ida, representing his country, like the pride and the honour he must feel, and he's taking the knee and he's looking up at Hungarian supporters, abusing him to high heaven, booing, doing far worse than that. The effect that is having on those young players. And is there anything you can do as a manager?
Well, they're very, you know, nothing but admiration for them, really. Nothing but admiration. I think, you know, Chidozie Ogbenya, the first African-born player to play for Ireland. It's a very proud moment for a lot of people. And we want the Irish team to make the Irish public proud. And we have to do that with our performances and our results. We have to do that, but it must be reflective of, it's a new multicultural Ireland and a new team that represents all facets of society. And that's the thing about football, it represents you know, every strand of society.
I think when it comes to the England national team at the moment, there was a sense after the 2018 World Cup that Gareth Southgate was this great, emotionally intelligent man who had taken this team to a pretty decent level of a World Cup semi-final. I think before this Euros, when he penned that letter on, was it the Players' Tribune, when he talks about the players taking the knee and why they're taking the knee, I think there was a section of society in Britain who would have just had so much more respect for Gareth Southgate, which you'd like to think is a good section of society and a large section of society. And I just think the more Stephen Kenny talks about this, the more that'll happen in Irish society, Neil. Yeah,
100%, and you can see it, and it's something Nathan brought up with him yesterday. He's always been someone who, even back to his Dundalk days, he's always been someone who was very, very comfortable speaking up on things he truly believed in, and you could 100% get the sense out of the way his voice was breaking up towards the end of that clip we just played, that, you know, that was something he truly, truly believed in, and he'd 100% going to stand up to his players there. And I don't get I certainly wouldn't take the idea that, you know, what he was saying after that Hungary game where he was backing his players to the hilt and, you know, coming out strongly against those Hungarian fans was, you know, this idea that we're just taking a knee for the sake of it, it's a token gesture. No. He absolutely believes that he's doing this because it's the right thing to do for his players, because his players want to do it, because he wants to support people who haven't had a voice. And I think it just is a fantastic thing. Like, when you look around, as he mentioned as well throughout that interview, like the areas and the places the Irish team are coming from now. You know, it's an Irish team that's been developed through all parts of the world from immigration into this country. And you can see it not just in the Irish soccer team at the moment, but you're starting to see that across other sports as well. I was watching the Ireland Rugby under-20s last night, and you look at kids like Sam Elo, Temi Lasisi, Daniel Okeke, Alex Soroka, who was born in Ireland to Ukrainian parents as well. Like, our national teams are really, really starting to reflect all of Ireland as a society now, where people are coming from all corners of the globe. There's all colours and creeds in our sporting teams, and it's a proper reflection on the Ireland that we have now.
100%. There was also this nonsense idea out there before he got the job, Stephen Kenny, that he wouldn't have the respect of the dressing room because of his background, or he wouldn't have the clout in order to be able to influence the dressing room. I think that if you're a player who's taken the knee before a match, and these are the sounds that your manager is making in the aftermath of the match and the weeks after the match, I mean, that's the opposite of not having the dressing room. I mean, that is a man you want to play for and you want to fight for out there. Now, the thing is, and he said it there in the answer, the results is what's going to be the thing that makes the country proud when it comes to this team. Of course, everything else can make the country more proud, but the bedrock of it is the results. And then that, of course, is where Stephen Kenny is open to criticism. And we get into this as well in last night's interview. Kenny told Nathan that he still 100% believes that his plan with Ireland will work.
You know, I think we revisited in the last window, of course, we won 4-1 and drew 0 all with Hungary. The importance of playing for Ireland, you know, what it means to play for Ireland, like the Italian players, the level of passion playing for Italy, we must have that for Ireland. No one should ever drop out of a camp because they're mentally tired or whatever, you know. And I think it's very, very important to have that level of passion playing for Ireland, and we see it, and people like Sheahan and James McLean have that in abundance, and we want every single player to have that level of commitment to turning up, the commitment to playing for Ireland, that level of determination. And we've got all those players coming through with brilliant technical ability who are going to be good players. They're going to learn from a lot of those experienced players who've been in the team, and they're only going to get better. And I'm very excited about the squad we're developing. We're going to have a very, very strong squad. We have tough qualifying coming up against Portugal and Serbia, of course, and Azerbaijan. And then we've got Azerbaijan away, Qatar, and then we finish with Portugal at home and Luxembourg. We knew we got a tough group, 1 qualifiers, and we knew that. All right, it was a tough group. We've got the Nations League, then after that, we've got the games in March and June, and we've got the Nations League. So I think I'm excited about the squad that's been developed. It represents all of the clubs throughout Ireland. All these players have come through from all the counties throughout Ireland. If you look at all the clubs, they've come through, and they've come through the underage international system. We've had a rapid introduction of players. Now, some people think I've introduced too many too soon. That's a criticism.
Do you accept it?
No, it's the right thing to do. I absolutely back it. Right, we've had a few defeats, and we've had other reasons for that as well. But we've had a lot of good performances, and I think it's the absolute right thing to do. I defy anyone who argues otherwise. We'll be very, very. We'll be very good now over the next couple of years. O'Shea's already 9 caps.
Yeah.
These players are going to have 15, 20 caps for the next European Championships as well, going to Germany. They will, for that campaign, they will have a lot of international experience by the time they get to there. This is going to be a team. I want this team to be a team that the Irish public are really proud of, that they can identify with. I won't accept that we can't play from the back or we can't pass the ball. That's completely lacking faith in the talent that we have. I don't accept it, and it will be proved otherwise.
Yeah, I think I've kind of forgotten how impassioned that defence was. It's just kind of listening back to it for the second time this morning, Neil. It's proper heart in the sleeve stuff. This is how we're going to go, and we're going to go down with our boots on if it's going to happen, and it will happen. I mean, if results don't get better, Stephen Kenny won't be the manager for the next European qualification campaign, but you just know between now and then that as the results do take an uptick, it will be as a result of a pure commitment to a style of football that he's clinging on to and he's not going to let go of.
Yeah, 100%. And you kind of mentioned it a few minutes back as well, where the argument has been, or was made when Kenny was coming in, that, you know, some of the more experienced players who have played in the Premier League and stuff like that might not truly respect Stephen Kenny because his legacy has been built in Irish football. But I don't see how any Irish player could listen to their manager, you know, backing them to the hilt like he was just there and not have a huge amount of respect for him. I think whether or not there are people who are listening at home agree or disagree on whether or not that's the right way to the Irish team should be playing football, I certainly couldn't take the notion that the players wouldn't have respect for that, because as I was saying, I was lucky enough to be in here yesterday and was sitting just outside the studio when all this was going on, and I know you could clearly pick it up off the words Kenny was using and the tone of voice that he had, but just to see the the physical expression and the gesticulating out of him yesterday. Like he was fit to burst with pride. The more and more he went on, I think it was particularly when he started talking about the Italian players and how passionate they were about playing for his country. That's what I think lifted his energy as he carried on with that conversation as well. And I just think in terms of the players anyway, I don't see how any of them could have heard that yesterday and not be thinking that that's a manager who has absolute full faith in their players' abilities. Whether or not he's correct, we don't know, but he certainly does have faith in them.
We're going to bring you a longer section of that interview this morning at around 9:30. It is 7:46 on this Friday morning. OTB AM is brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. Quick picks coming your way in just a moment. The sports page is then, which is dominated by Stephen Kenny at 8:05. Graham Hunter will be with us to get the lay of the land ahead of like 4 cracking quarterfinals. Let's not make any bones about it, especially tonight. 2 brilliant games. The Lions then with Neil, and we're going to talk Ireland with Neil as well at 9:25. Dayna Finn of Mayo and now of the Ireland senior basketball team will be with us at 9:10. Then at 9 o'clock, former Kerry player Declan O'Sullivan will be with us, and then from 9:15 we have the crappy quiz before 9:30 sees a good section of that Stephen Kenny interview played out. Right, Will O'Callaghan, how are you?
Yeah, morning Neil. How are you getting on?
Good. It is time for our quick picks, and Will O'Callaghan, you may put one of these predictions down as your lock of the week. Before we get into any of the predictions this week, what happened to your lock of the week last week for people who weren't with us?
Look, Eoin, if you're going to be right 52% of the time, you're going to be wrong 48% of the time. That's the first disclaimer that you have to throw out. The second one is fair play to Wexford. They won their first Leinster Championship game in 7 years. Big surprise, I thought, when they won at Ockram last week, given the form of the two teams going into that game. Wicklow looked really well placed to win a championship game, probably then go out against Dublin the week afterwards. But they didn't perform, and I got worried straight away when I had the match tracker open on Sunday and Wexford had scored a goal within, I think, 90 seconds of throw-in, and you're thinking, here we go again, my lock of the week has gone to an absolute mess. And I was blamed by many Wicklow supporters for their performance last weekend, apparently. On national media, if they're being bigged up, it's my fault that they didn't perform. And I was even watching the interviews on the Sunday game, and it was like, that's the worst performance we've put in Championship for quite some time, and not what we expected. So, Look, it's a funny old one when that happens sometimes. But the great thing is, the Leinster Championship last weekend, as we deride it so often for being so uncompetitive, and I know that Dublin are back playing this weekend, and we'll probably be talking about a hammering being handed out at Wexford Park. But last weekend, the Leinster Championship was really competitive. We got 3 good games. Carlow against Longford, Offaly's thriller against Louth, which is probably game of the weekend, and that Wexford-Wicklow game went right down to the line as well. So 3 good games in a provincial championship that we often write off as that'll be the result, and we don't give it any praise.
Can I jump in there, though? Is that not a bit of a criticism of the Leinster Championship as well, though, insofar as, okay, we might have a couple more decent games out of these quarterfinals this weekend, but semi-finals and finals onwards, I don't really think we're going to have particularly great games. Like, I know you're saying we had 3 very, very good games in the Leinster Championship last Sunday, but they're preliminary round matches.
Yeah, I know. I appreciate that point, Neil, in fairness. And it's the creeping inevitability that Dublin are going to walk up and pick up the trophy at Croke Park at the end of this. Really, what you get in Leinster, unlike Ulster, where, say, like, if you win 1 or 2 games, you might think genuinely, I can take the other Sharks out and perhaps lift the Anglo-Celt at the end of it. The realism here is that you're winning local derbies and you're getting a result which you remember, like, say, Wexford last weekend, like whoever wins the derby between Laois and Westmeath this weekend. Like, realistically, you've got Dublin miles ahead. Meath and Kildare, it seems, closing the gap a bit to the other Division 1 counties, and then a lot of teams who are going to be bottom of Division 2, Division 3. So we get to just kind of enjoy the scraps between them in the first round and in the quarter-final, but realistically, we all know what the result of the story is. But look, this doesn't mean the last week wasn't enjoyable in and of itself.
I do think if you take Dublin out of the championship in Leinster, it's one of the best competitions you have, which obviously makes no sense at all. But I actually think that there's a huge vulnerability with the likes of Meath and Kildare, where, I mean, we might get into this in a moment. I know everybody's picked Offaly in the game against, or picked Kildare in the game against Offaly.
Don't give it all away, Eoin. Don't give it all away.
Yeah. But I think there's enough nervousness around all those picks in the Leinster Championship, with the exception, obviously, of the All-Ireland champions. Let's get last week's scores up, or the table as it stands.
Adrian Barry.
The surprise from Neil Treacy's voice.
10-0.
10-0. He got all 10 picks correct. He's been in touch to say, despite my natural modesty, gutted I won't be there to gloat about my 100% record. So that is from Adrian Barry this morning. He was taking the morning off, sipping on a pina colada with his feet up somewhere, just celebrating being the Nostradamus of Gaelic games. He got all 10 correct. Tommy Rooney there somehow at the bottom, despite the fact that he got the Wexford-Wicklow thing correct, if I'm not... Oh, no, he didn't, actually. He got Clare Waterford correct, which was the one that you and I got wrong, Will, and we also got the Wicklow game wrong. So that's where the predictions lie. Let's have a look at how we're looking for this week then. So there's not a whole pile of differences in all these, so we'll run through all of these. On screen for those radio listeners, we've got Monaghan for Fermanagh, we've got Armagh against Antrim, and we've got Roscommon against Galway. I can tell you that myself, Tommy, Will and Adrian have all predicted Monaghan to beat Fermanagh, Armagh to beat Antrim, and Galway to beat Roscommon.
This is like the Spider-Man gif, where they're all just pointing at each other. That last set of predictions.
It really
is. What was the point in putting that screen grab up, guys?
Because Adrian Barry needs to get to 13-0. That's why we're going to pad his record. I will say though that there's like enough about Roscommon there to give us all maybe a small few palpitations. Here then, I'm the maverick, because everybody has picked Kildare to beat Offaly. Everybody's obviously picked Dublin to beat Wexford. At that, I would agree with you. What was the point of even putting that on screen? Meath, everybody's picking Meath to beat Longford, which I think is a little bit of a... You wouldn't be 100% confident in that either. And then the thing that we've actually got a bit of disagreement on, in the only fixture this weekend, is Laois against Westmeath. Will, you've gone for Westmeath, so have Tommy and Adrian. But I'm going against them. I'm going for Laois this weekend. I know Westmeath technically had a better league campaign. They got relegated in more impressive fashion than Laois got relegated. But I'm backing Laois. As the Midlands correspondent here, tell me why I'm wrong.
Laois haven't got going all year would probably be the argument I would make against this. Like Westmeath know that they're without Kieran Martin. They have a couple of other injuries, which it's going to be intriguing to see what the team news is like when it comes out, probably on Saturday, given I doubt either team will want to reveal their hand ahead of this game in Tullamore. They played an absolute stinker of a game in the Championship a couple of years ago at the same venue, which was just about edged out by Laois in the end. It was a day where Westmeath didn't perform a few weeks after they'd met in a league final, and then the result was reversed in the Championship. But I can't really give a nod towards Laois on this, given that with the exception of a few minutes of the game in Newry against Down in the relegation playoff, they got nowhere near the other teams that they played in the league this year. They were well beaten by Clare and against Kildare, particularly in the last game. Kildare absolutely ran away with it, and they lost against Cork too. While Westmeath, as you say, were very competitive against Mayo at home. They put in a very good performance away from home against Cork in the ultimate playoff where they went down. They've been free scoring despite the fact that Kieran Martin has been injured. And if you're going to back Laois, you're ultimately backing them putting in a Championship performance which is nowhere near what we've seen from them in any of the games so far. So yeah. I think you're punting a little bit blindly on if you're thinking that they're going to find form. Yeah. Westmeath's injuries would definitely be a concern. The fact that Laois have found a way in recent years of stopping Westmeath's forwards from getting the ball is also a concern for them. But I still think Westmeath will have too much, and Westmeath are playing better than Laois so far this year. I am punting a little bit blindly, but I'm also punting on the knowledge that we have that every Leinster Championship weekend, assuming Dublin aren't the only team playing, tends to throw up some sort of shock, or at least a scare. Now, I don't think Laois beating Westmeath is a shock as such. It would be mild surprise.
Mild surprise. They are the outsiders. If you're looking at the betting there, Westmeath are favoured at this moment. I'm also backing a little bit on pedigree as well, Will. Just a team that have been better in the qualifiers than Westmeath over recent years. Not a million miles away from getting to round 4 of the qualifiers a couple of years ago, and then maybe edging out a Super 8 spot. They've shown glimmers of being able to mix it with teams that are in the upper echelons of Division 2. And in fairness, so have Westmeath in recent years, but Laois maybe have been doing it for a little bit longer. I think Westmeath have come off that period of time where Adrian Barry ironically would have said that they're the best team in Leinster with the exception of Dublin, because they got to more Leinster finals over whatever a 3 or 4 period than anyone else other than Dublin. So I think they've come off that but are on the uptick once again. And I think
it's the last. The only one thing is I think this is the last hurrah for this Laois team. Like, there's a lot of players with miles in the legs throughout their side, particularly down the spine. You're looking at guys who are over 30 pretty much across the board. And in the case of Colin Begley, John O'Loughlin, Kieran Lillis, a lot of the players who are fairly central, they have played a lot of football as much as their age. And I think we're really getting into that territory. Is this going to be Ross Munnelly's last championship game, potentially? Is he going to stay around for a 19th season next year? There's a lot of change coming for Laois, and they could desperately do with a little mini run now, or it's going to be pretty miserable. And I'd say a lot of questions about Mike Quirke if they were to go out this year with no wins whatsoever.
On the dubs, Kieran Whelan in the Independent and the Herald this morning suggests that Dublin could be more vulnerable this summer than they have been in recent years. As the strength and depth of some of Dublin's chief challengers has deepened, I'm not sure the same can be said for Dublin. Between retirements and a slowing of the conveyor belt, I don't think the current Dublin squad is as strong as some other of recent times. He's probably right, Will. The question I put to you is, do you think that that squad depth will be helped just a little bit by the return of Stephen Cluxton?
Yeah, this is a funny one. That the only talk really about Dublin coming into this is, see, Cluxton, will he play this weekend or won't he play this weekend? As if Evan Comerford playing goal against Wexford at Wexford Park at the weekend would make any difference whatsoever. This is kind of becoming like a reverse Yera. A lot of Dublin pundits are now saying, "Oh, look how strong Kerry are," and Kerry have been so impressive so far this year. It's almost like a perfect way of pushing off any pressure about Dublin going for the 7 this season. Like, I didn't see anything in the league that would concern me if I was a Dublin fan, even without having their manager on the sideline, even with the retirements that they've had over the last 18 months. This Dublin team and this Dublin panel are still the best team and panel in the country. Is anyone actually going to really argue against that, outside of, say, someone in Kerry or Dublin, where they're deliberately trying to play the other one up?
Yeah, I totally agree with you on the reverse era point, Will. I think they've become as good at that as they have become at Gaelic football over the past 10 years. They're exceptional at it, and maybe they're just playing down their own chances because I don't know what impact that necessarily has on anyone. Like,
what is the Dublin word for Yera? Is it ahir?
Ahir or Asher look, either or.
I don't know. Asher look, that feels a bit more country than Dublin. I think ahir is a bit more suitable.
I'm sure all the Dublin players are country people anyway, aren't they? They've all just got heritage from different corners of the west and the southwest. Kerry's Declan O'Sullivan. Congratulations on your retirement. Another great Kerry man gone from the panel during the week. You can say, Neil, and I know that in your head, Neil, you're like, all these predictions, they're all so predictable. Everybody's picking the same teams. That's the football championship for you. The football championship's so predictable. And I'm sure in the back of your head is like, wait till we get the hurling up on screen, because there's going to be great variety in everybody's predictions, because nobody can ever tell what's going to happen in hurling. Let's have a look at our hurling predictions. Oh, everybody just
record scratch. Freeze frame.
We're all picking Galway over Dublin. We're all picking Kilkenny over Wexford. We're all picking Limerick over Cork, and we're all picking Tip over Clare. Neil Treacy, this is your moment to go reverse the era on Limerick.
No, I won't be. Well, look, I think if Limerick or if Cork are to win this weekend, I think Limerick are going to need to have an absolute off day when it comes to shooting, because they've just got to a point in the last year where they're more than happy to pick off the scores and just back themselves to be able to fire over 32, 33 points in a game without really having to go for a goal too much at any point. If a goal pops up, all the better. And I think everyone probably was a slight little bit worried about Limerick when they had that little bad run at the start of the league, and you were just kind of, things weren't going right. They were getting on the wrong side of referees. They'd obviously had the draw and then the couple of defeats, but there was an intensity and just a movement of the gears when they did play Cork at the Gaelic grounds towards the end of the league, where you were like, oh, okay, they've thrown they've dusted the cobwebs off and they're gearing themselves up. They're moving through towards championship mode. I know Cork were obviously resting a lot of key players on that day as well, but the way Limerick just went after them in the first half of that match, it really, really felt like a big statement out of them. And I think the way the games have probably been reffed towards the end of the league probably lends itself to Limerick style as well, where they were getting on the wrong side of the refs, and as a lot of pundits have pointed out over the last couple of weeks, that the final rounds of the league were probably reffed in a more championship style, where things were being let go a little bit more, which obviously I think plays into Limerick's hands as well. But yeah, I think Limerick, if Limerick are to lose, they're going to have to really, really get on the wrong side of a referee, and they're also going to have to be hitting a lot of wides, I think, because they're just more than happy to pick off the scores. Yeah, I think there could have been a maverick in those predictions were it not for that league statement by Limerick in the game against Cork a few weeks ago.
Which of these games are you most concerned about, Will, from a prediction standpoint?
Wexford Kilkenny probably. Wexford beat them in a Leinster final a couple of years ago under Davy Fitzgerald. They seem to have found a way to beat Kilkenny. There are all sorts of question marks about Kilkenny's team coming into this year, but yet they played reasonably okay during the league. It was a little bit up and down, but they played fairly well. Wexford let rip against Laois last week, which I'd say was probably a pretty decent warm-up just even to get a championship run out. And yeah, you'd have to wonder going to Croke Park. But the only thing is, like the last time Wexford went to Croker, there was a huge expectation about how they were going to hurl against Galway in last year's championship, and they were just flat as a pancake when they played. So it's difficult, I'd say, to put huge stock into Wexford going up against a big opponent by comparison to, Laois, who stood off very defensively last week and invited Wexford upon them. It's going to be intriguing to see if Conor McDonald ends up hurling out on the half-forward line as opposed to playing at full forward this weekend. Could he go out there? Will they risk maybe occupying one of the Kilkenny halfbacks in order to try and stop him? How reliant are Kilkenny still on TJ Reid? Lots of question marks, but you would think that Kilkenny should have enough. Like, you look at what Kilkenny did in the Leinster final last year, where they didn't hurl particularly well for large stages of the game, and yet they were able to turn it around very quickly and get goals when they required them. I still kind of just about fancy Kilkenny, but I think that game's an absolute coin flip. It's same as, I think, Galway and Roscommon in the football. I know we didn't talk about it, but that one's actually really, really hard to call. I know we all went for Galway across the board, but I wouldn't be one bit surprised if on Sunday afternoon we're talking about a Rossi's win against Galway as opposed to the other way. And I genuinely feel that about Kilkenny against Wexford. Tip and Clare's a hard one to call as well, lads, because, Clare last week hurled very well, while Waterford hurled very badly. Tipperary hit the feet up at home, as Brian Lohan said after the game, watching it. And, Tipperary have got such a kind of experienced group of players now with an experience of winning in 2019. It's been pointed out in a lot of the previews that there's players there who started their career with Tipperary in 2008 who are going to be across the spine of their team. And as much as they need to work younger players in, Sheedy's into his last year. He's going to care about winning as opposed to blooding players when it comes to the championship. And I just think, Tipperary probably have enough firepower to get past Clare. But again, you wouldn't be totally surprised if Clare put it up to them after what will have to be a confidence-boosting win against Waterford last week.
The most dangerous weapon for Tipperary this year is the fact that they're not All-Ireland champions. Whenever they're All-Ireland champions, with the exception of the 1960s, you can say Tipperary aren't going to do this and back it up. So I agree, they're a very dangerous animal to go all the way. I'm disappointed that there's not more variety, except for my Maverick pick on Laois, but all the same, enjoy the weekend, Will.
Yeah, bad news is Adrian Barry's still going to be top of the table no matter what happens next week.
That is true.
Oh, yeah.
Things will change eventually, but we'll rectify that as the summer goes on. Will O'Callaghan, thank you.
Have a good one, lads.
Right, it is 2 minutes past 8 on this Friday morning, and we've got a packed show still to come here on OTB AM. We will hear from Graham Hunter in just a moment. We'll be talking Lions as well, and next we will have this morning's papers.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Have you subscribed to the OTB Football Podcast? If not, here's some of what you've missed over the last week.
He got on the flight and he wasn't sure. He thought it might be dead.
It's not like he did what I did at Dalybone Park, you know what I mean, and rolled one into his own net.
I want this team to be a team that the Irish public are really proud of. I won't accept that we can't play from the back or we can't pass the ball.
For the best Euro 2020 coverage, subscribe now to the OTB Football Podcast wherever you get your podcasts and download the OTB Sports app.
Why not check out the Boyle Sports betting app for a full range of markets on shots on target, assists, passes and more on every match of the Euros, all powered by Opta. Rated 4.5 stars on the App Store, you'll find all our latest odds and offers for the Euros. So remind us where to go, Stevie G.
Boyle Sports, this is betting.
18 plus, bet responsibly, gamblingcare.ie.
Car insurance is boring, but you don't have to be. Get Set Go is the kind of car insurance you can sort in a few minutes online, then bounce on with your day. Are you ready for Quick Start Insurance? Get a quote now at getsetgo.ie. MCL Insurance Services Ireland Limited, trading as getsetgo.ie, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
You're welcome back. Plenty of reactions still this morning to the Stephen Kenny interview and Off the Ball last night. Shifty Lad says, Kenny is a good man. He's obviously emotional about taking the knee. I really hope he does well. What is success, though, with the team? It's a tough group. Love his convictions. Good luck, Stephen. And I think what is success is an interesting question. I don't think he is fighting for his job over the course of this qualification campaign per se, as in qualifying means he keeps his job and not qualifying means he loses his job. I think there is a way in which they salvage this qualification campaign with a few positive results, as a result of a few positive performances, and then there will be general hope around the next European Championships, and it could then come down to whether or not he qualifies for the following Euros. But I do think that there is going to need to be some sort of positivity at the end of the day on a number of these games over the course of the next year or so in order for him to keep the job. I just think that the idea of them qualifying for Qatar at this point is fanciful. Frank says winning results can only ever be a true barometer of success, and very occasionally you can point to moral victories, but regardless of the sport, individuals and or teams always need to win. And then Dahi's been in touch on the hurling, saying Cork fear no one in the hurling, especially Limerick. It's just in their collars up DNA confidence.
That's 100% correct. Like, it is absolutely 100% correct. I've never met a Cork person who was afraid of anything, particularly Limerick when it comes to Gaelic games. So no, as much as I think Limerick will win this weekend, I would definitely agree with Dahi there, who sent in that message. No, Cork won't have fear of anyone. It is 100% not in their DNA.
Is Cork Limerick's main rival, or is Clare?
It tends to come and go. I don't think Cork or Limerick's main rival. In terms of in general, or are we talking historically?
In general.
Who
do you dislike more? If there was a Cork person and a Clare person here, who are you least likely to talk to?
To be honest, the tip person.
The tip person. Option C.
I don't know. People might disagree, but I would say the feeling I always would have got at home when it comes to hurling anyway is that Tip are the team that you always did. Like, obviously you wanted to beat all of them, but a win against Tip always felt a little bit sweeter.
Okay.
Trying to think now.
That's fair. Like, obviously this is still down to hurling.
This is down to hurling.
And then, like, I mean, is there like a little bit of a pride when it comes to the Limerick versus the Cork contingent within the Munster team then, Neil?
Yeah, it would be a Cork thing definitely when it comes to rugby. In hurling, I'd be inclined to say Tip. I'd say Clare probably not so much, because, like, you're talking Clare wouldn't have been a major contender nationally until, the late 90s. So I definitely think it was Tip who were just constantly I want to say thorn in the side, but Tip had essentially had a lot more success than Limerick. So maybe Limerick were Tip's thorn in the side. Interesting.
More to dig into here, the psychoanalysis of the Limerick sports fan. The Irish Independent this morning leads with that interview on Off the Ball last night. Stephen Kenny, they couldn't get a pulse, and apparently I turned blue. Stephen Kenny opening up on a traumatic heart scare. Farrell says, I don't expect to join the Lions tour in South Africa. That's Andy Farrell speaking yesterday. And the Thurles duel between Tip and Clare to host 3,000 supporters. The Herald, you're delighted just to be alive, is the quote from Stephen Kenny there. Kenny is opening up on his brush with death when he collapsed on Ireland under-21 trip. You've got Martin Keimer and Shane Lowry shaking hands there at the Irish Open at Mount Juliet yesterday, and also that story about Andy Farrell there on the back of the Herald. The Irish Examiner then goes with head scratcher as their headline. Photograph there of amused Rory McIlroy. McIlroy and home heroes struggled for momentum at Irish Open. Derek McGrath writing about the hurling this weekend. Naturally, focused Kylie will have another trick up his sleeve, he says, and there's match reports from the under-26 nations, plenty of Euro stuff in there as well. The Irish Times then leads with the golf. Philip Reid at Mount Juliet. McIlroy needs to iron out kinks after level par opening round, and Herbert hot to trot, but home heroes fail to spark. So that is the Irish Times for you. The Daily Telegraph sports section. Jones targets miracle return. Veteran Lock hopes to play in Lions' first test in South Africa. Wales captain making speedy recovery from shoulder injury. This would be extraordinary, Neil.
Yeah, it would be. Now, in fairness, Warren Gatland did say last week, immediately afterwards, that best case scenario, Alan Wynne-Jones could be available for a first test. I think for him to return to the squad, he probably needs someone else to get injured, though, and to be recalled. And I think it's probably still very unlikely, because a lot of timings have to land in perfectly. I would say, obviously, Alan Wynne-Jones' recovery and rehab has to go absolutely smoothly over the next few weeks. And I think, to be honest, he also needs a spot to open up in the week or so before a test match, because I don't think he's going to get called into the squad at any point before it, because even if he is available to play in a first test, he would still be probably touch and go in the week leading up and would be constantly having to be monitored. I think it's probably a long shot, but the man is absolute hard as nails, so you could see it happen. I just think, though, that too many things probably have to fall into line for it to happen.
Yeah, I read this and it says the Daily Telegraph can reveal that he has told Warren Gatland that he can get himself right, or he hopes to get himself right, after the injury he sustained was not as severe as first feared. And I wonder, is it not as severe because of the injury, or is it not as severe because it's Alan Wynne-Jones and he's just, as you say, made of nails? And
for anyone else, it is as severe as first feared.
The Irish Sun back page. I'm not going to lie to you, Stephen, but I thought you were dead. That's Jim Crawford and what he is said to have said to Stephen Kenny after he thankfully pulled through that health scare a couple of years ago. All wanted pizza us is the headline on Charlie White's piece here with regards to England. Jack Grealish claiming that everyone is gunning for his England side at Euro 2020. He's referred to their front six as scary. Coleman of his word. Seamus Coleman says Ireland will set out to win in Portugal in September, and Munster GAA have confirmed that there will be 3,000 fans at Tip Clare this weekend. The Irish Mirror leads with the Jack Grealish stuff. We're so good, it's scary. Grealish backs himself, Sancho, Rashford, Sterling, Foden and Saka to terrify all opponents and get into any team in the world. Meanwhile, United and Real in talks over £50 million Varane deal. Talks have opened. I'm sure Real Madrid would like to keep Rafael Varane, given Sergio Ramos has already left the club.
So if talks have opened, that means United are going to sign Varane in 3 years?
After his peak, once he has one crap season, he will arrive and finally replace Victor Lindelof. Is that the sort of signing, Neil, if it does happen, that himself and Sancho come in and they're automatic title contenders?
Oh, I think Varane, I certainly think Varane is still an excellent signing for United. I think it'd be absolutely brilliant. They'd have to consider themselves title contenders, even if on paper you didn't particularly rate the squad. They've got to a point now where they either have to be title contenders or, what are they doing realistically? You know? They can't come into this season and be like, do you know what, top four is another good result this year. They've been at that crack long enough now that they have to absolutely back themselves. Whether or not, as I said, they're good on paper, we have to be good enough for this title. Yeah, it'll be coming up to 10 years now. The back of the Irish Daily Star says, Raf trade, United out to pip Paris Saint-Germain to Varane deal. Meanwhile, Dubs dynasty not down to money. This is according to Sean Boylan, and we've got to restore the pride, says Seamus Coleman, obviously doing the rounds yesterday. Just a couple of other very quick ones. I Nearly Died. Kenny reveals extent of 2019 heart scare. That's Philip Quinn's piece on the Off the Ball last night. And Our attack is scarily good, says Grealish is the lead at the London Times. And then finally, the back page of The Guardian. Hold on to your hat. Norrie ensures 3 British men reach third round at Wimbledon as Cavendish rolls back the years with second tour stage win in 3 days. So at 8:15 on this Friday morning, delighted to welcome Graham Hunter to the show. Graham, how are you getting on?
Yeah, look, top at the stage of a European Championship, I'd be a dirty liar if I didn't say that you feel the impact, mental and physical. It's busy. Euphoric too, because the tournament has been, I think it's been exceptional in terms of issues, entertainment, some great goals. So in decent nick. But if I didn't say that by the time the referee blows his whistle on, is it July the 11th at the end of the final, I won't be glad of a little break, then I wouldn't be doing justice to it. It's a beautiful slog is what it is. That's the best way to describe it.
Those round of 16 games, absolutely incredible that day. And I think it does have to go down in fame, really, as the greatest day, the greatest individual day of football ever, Graham. I'm not sure what you think.
I couldn't agree more. I think that we get addicted to surprise. I don't think we only get addicted to David's throwing a stone into Goliath's forehead. I think that, for example, the roller coaster nature of Croatia-Spain included some fantastic goals. So it wasn't just a slugfest where you can say it's a case of never mind the quality, feel the width. There were moments of sublime quality in there. But I think, it has to be the more surprising that when Switzerland are down and out and they're finished, and a largely not that impressive France side who have let me down. I thought they were potential winners. With Belgium, I thought they were the two stick-out favourites at the beginning of the tournament. And they've got the game tucked away. And as much as though Switzerland recently I covered quite a lot because Spain and Switzerland and Germany were in a Nations League group, and I watched Switzerland's games with Germany as well as the two against Spain. And I was aware that Petkovic's side had chutzpah, liked playing front foot football. But that ball in for the 3-3 goal and the finish, absolutely gorgeous. To have taken us to the brink when Switzerland got a goal disallowed, and you think, okay, well, that's as far as that firework is going to sputter. It's not going to flame and go off. And then the way in which Switzerland took away all their penalties. I like a penalty shootout where one side is perfect. And they were. Sommer is a really special and interesting goalkeeper. His save against Mbappe was probably, of all the penalty saves so far in the tournament, I think it probably was at or around the best. The sense of drama, the fact that it was Mbappe who was denied, that was just exceptional. To have two games like that within, starting within an hour of one another, each going to extra time and then there being penalties, plus the way in which Switzerland did a fatal attraction and came back out of the bath and went, I'm not dead yet. It was just magical, yeah, magical. Thank Glenn, by the way, if you're listening to Off the Ball AM, morning Glenn Close.
5 o'clock today then, Spain against Switzerland. So I'm sure you're familiar with the meme of the dog in the burning inferno of a house, and the caption is, "This is fine." And the dog is just sitting there with a smile on its face. That, for me, is this Spanish team throughout this competition. They are in the middle of a blazing inferno, and they are like, do not worry, everything is going to be okay. And it has been okay so far, Graham. In fact, it's getting better and better and better.
Yeah, but as good as you are, you've rarely caught me out before. I've glimpsed at that meme. I've never understood it. I have no idea what it means ever. And people accuse me of coming up with word pictures that you've got to work a little bit with. You've just done that. Is he wearing a Homburg or
correct,
a bowler hat or something as well?
Correct, yeah.
I mean, that's not interesting. Why the dog's chosen to wear a hat? Never mind. Look, I think that instead of a hat, that dog's wearing a crown. I'm going to argue. I don't quite buy your shout.
Okay.
Yes, it's been a little bit testing. Look, again, I'd be a dirty liar if I didn't commit a rip for ESPN that, hey, hold on, never mind 10 goals in 2 games. No side's ever done that in the Euro before. Spain have never played 4 games in a competition before and scored 10 goals. They've only ever, superseded that mark, 11 goals in 2008, 2012, and potentially Spain have got 3 games to go. So, it's pretty sexy when they get going, and dog in a fiery room. The metaphor of this tournament has been not yours, but Luis Enrique's, because he was boxing clever for a long time about Spain's draws and their inability to convert the chances. And I've been taught to really love when I like it a lot when coaches or players, particularly in press conferences, so when you're talking to them individually, you have at least a chance to not prize them up, but know when there's sincerity and when there isn't. In a press conference, it's much more difficult. But often when a manager will say something to you and it sounds bizarre, but then it happens, you, me, the audience, we get the thing that the players dig the most. Players will always say to you, the manager said, do this and this will happen, or they're going to do this to you and this is how you supersede it. And players become disciples when managers say something and it happens again and again and again. I've heard that most of all from players who work for Pep Guardiola. Well, there's an echo chamber here. Before the Slovakia game, Luis Enrique said, when my players unblock, it'll be like shaking a cava bottle and taking the cork out, it'll just explode. And after a 0-0 against Portugal, never mind that, after a 1-1 against Greece and a late winner against Georgia to convert a 1-1 into 2-1, a 0-0 draw against Portugal, 0-0 Sweden, 1-1 Poland, him saying, listen, explosion is coming. And then it happens, or you have to respect that. But it echoes on something that the last time Switzerland and Spain played, Luis Enrique did the same thing. It was last November. They'd already won 1-0 against Switzerland in Madrid. Then they played in Basel and they missed 2 penalties. And it didn't feel like they played well. It genuinely didn't. After the match, somebody said that to Luis Enrique and he went, stop. You can't see what I'm seeing. It's not just that you don't see training and I do. I see football better than all of you. I genuinely, it's my job to see it better and you don't understand. He says a massive performance is coming. 3 days later, they go out and they beat Germany 6-0. I like it when coaches say, blah, 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 blah. It's not mouth music and it comes true. And it did. So I think the Flames, at least, just to pick up on your analogy, the Flames are going down. It is a possibility, I think, even with Xhaka out, it is a possibility that Switzerland can put the brakes on Spain, can thwart them. My opinion is that the unblocking, that the psychological boost, not just of scoring all those goals, but converting good play into goals, knowing that the style to which they're completely wedded can produce winning moments and coming back off the ropes, not just from the bizarre goal they concede for the 1-0 and the own goal, but also coming back off the ropes, having let a 3-1 lead go away. These things are going to see them through, I think, tonight against Switzerland. I think Spain do win. On an ordinary day, I think they win 2-1. If they have a really good day and Switzerland haven't got the energy to keep up the press, maybe then they win 3-1. But it is far from inconceivable that your Flames go up again and that maybe we're going to penalties, because Switzerland in the last few games against Spain, have shown that they know how to make them work, how to make them soar. And I think a huge amount depends on whether the 13,500 kilometres that Switzerland have travelled, plus the euphoria, not just the physical effort, the euphoria of maybe the greatest win in their history to knock out the world champions. How much has that cost them? Or has it pushed them on physically because they just think they're invincible? We'll wait and see, but I think it's a hugely fascinating game.
You penned a love letter to Pedri, and I remember, I think probably the first time we ever discussed Pedri on the show was with yourself. I think you actually said we need to talk about this guy rather than us going to you with him. Like, I mean, the answer is obviously based largely down to the fact that this guy is an insanely talented individual. But the fact that he comes into the Barcelona team, plays 37 games, has played every single minute of this Euro so far, what is it about him as a personality that allows him to get up to speed so quickly at this level?
I asked him that, and he talked about street football when he was a kid. He accepts that he does take snapshots. I asked him if he had a photographic memory, and he said yes. So he takes little... I mean, the answers he gives are not particularly different from all good players, but that's not enough, because I argued in that love letter that you describe accurately, because I'm just head over heels with this kid. I argued that when we see a teenage tyro, it's usually because that, I mean, I'm talking about men's football here, it's usually because that kid is a man in stature and pace, power, and the date on his passport doesn't matter. It's usually when there's breakthrough kids, it's normally not because, look, they play a refined, intelligent, visionary game. Pedri is also blessed with a physique that, you know, genuinely, if he said he was 15 or 16, you'd believe him. So how he does it is too difficult a question to answer, because I don't know. And I don't think he even really wants to think about it too much. But his brain works at a rate like Busquets' brain. He understands long before the ball comes to him what 3 options are going to be open to him and which he'll choose. He's not infallible. He might get bullied today, because even in the Croatia game, Luka Modric, who's got the full bundle of talents, Bruce Lee'd him from a great height, came in sort of knee and shin into Pedri's back, the bit between his shoulders, flattened him completely. It was an orange card, never mind a yellow at the time. People will try that persistently because he's tiny, slender. He's not blessed also with, massive athletic pace. But his brain is literally, I can use the word, his brain is brilliant. And it's unfeasible that somebody who began at 17 at Barcelona without any training at a top level club, who was playing his football a year ago today, was playing football to try and keep Las Palmas out of the third division. To be here now, it needs a whirlwind of perfect circumstances. Luis Enrique, it needs to be that coach. There are so few footballers. Rijkaard wasn't trusting a 22, 23-year-old Iniesta. And right now, stats don't do enough, but Pedri's stats with Spain are far ahead of Xavi and Iniesta's. Doesn't mean he goes on to better them. Doesn't mean that, because a career is long and there'll be a lot of stony ground and there'll be difficult moments for him. But I literally think we're watching a phenomenon. And I think the big thing, I'm not selling Spain. Anybody who can't be at a game in St. Petersburg, anybody who wants to turn on the radio or the television will just get pleasure from watching this kid. I told, a couple of months ago, I told our ex-Premier League player who's now a big star on television, look out for Pedri. And during the last game, he texted me and said, I can't use he used a word beginning with F as a part of his description, but it was effing sublime. What a joy to watch. He's a diamond. Thanks for the tip-off. You've got the vision. I think we're watching somebody who will simply give non-Spain fans enormous enjoyment to say, that's how I want to see football played. And to see it played by an 18-year-old kid is verging on miraculous.
Graham, on Alvaro Morata, has there been much revisionism or rowing back, remorse around a lot of the criticism he had over the course of the last couple of weeks since he got his goal against Croatia and the floodgates opened in general for Spain over the last week?
I don't think so. I think that the most horrific stuff came from social media, with people wishing harm on his kids and on his wife and on him. And that's where the hurt comes. That's where the sting is. That's why he's spoken out. I'm so glad he's spoken out. In the media, no, I think they speak with forked tongue. In the Spanish media, I think there's a lack of regard for Morata. And I think that some of it is based upon the fact that, unfortunately, in pure elite sports terms, he's got a tiny little bit that isn't absent, but the mercury goes up and down in that part of the hardness, the nastiness, that this is my minute, every get out of the way, I'm seizing it. We've seen it in all the sports coverage you do, male or female sport, right across every branch of sport. You get really big interviews on your show. You talk to people about the winning gene, and it isn't enough to be blessed with what he's got, which is a fantastic football physique. He's lean, he's quick, he's very strong. He's not only tall, but he's good in the air. There's a lot there, and his record is good. He's played in 3 Champions League finals. He's scored in 1. He's won 2 of them. He's repeatedly won trophies, across Europe. But there is something that's a little bit unusual about him. It is the case that he has moments where his concentration flickers, and that will continue. And I think that, irrespective of the fact that he's won 2 European Championships for Spain already in the junior categories, which I think matters, because the proof is that doing that regularly leads to you winning regularly at the senior side. I think the media are affable with him when he's scoring, and they put the boot in when he's not, and I don't think that will change. So not a lot of revisionism, no. But the key thing to him is that, one, I've noticed he's matured a lot. He's a different fella. I told a tale where, 5 years ago in Ile de Ré in the European Championships, we were stationed just off an island, just off Nantes, and it was 6, 7, 8 months after those horrific attacks on Paris, and therefore security was quite high, and we were stationed with several people from the equivalent of, I suppose, the SAS. It's called RAID in France. Response police that are verging on the military, and they were guarding Spain, and none of the Spain players were interested in talking to them, thanking them, how are you, even a good morning, except for Morata. I spoke to these 2 RAID semi-soldiers and said, look, how is it? And listen, none of them talk to us. They all affect complete disdain for us, except for Morata says hi, hello, chats to us. He's an affable, sort of easygoing guy. But over the years, he's become, I don't know if it's coming through the injury problems that he had with his back at Chelsea, whether it's being married and having kids, whether it's life at Juventus, a tough job, he's different. And he's known that Luis Enrique has got his back. and he's known that he'll be a consistent starter. That's what's made the difference. And I think that, if this was his school report card, you'd say, well, Alvaro's a very good pupil. He could be top of the class if he just pays a little bit more attention. There's no doubt he's had a good tournament, except for the fact that he's about 4 goals short of where he should be. And if that gets measured out today and he pays the faith back again today, then none of the foregoing will matter at all.
So that's the 5 o'clock game today, obviously Switzerland against Spain, and then probably the main event of the weekend tonight, 8 o'clock, Belgium against Italy. I just wanted to ask you about what has become the great bromance of Euro 2020, Mancini and Vialli. It's just beautiful scenes, the happiness that they're getting off one another and off the team that is playing in front of them. You've obviously been pushing back out your interview with Sven-Göran Eriksson from a while back, where he talks about that era of Sampdoria greatness, something that maybe a lot of us aren't overly aware of. So how close are these two guys, Vialli and Mancini, and how beautiful is their friendship?
Yeah, they're brothers. I think the friendship is augmented by the fact that they're together again all these years on the bench for Italy, where neither of them would say that they got the success for Azzurri that their generation probably deserved. But beyond that, it is important in the story that Luca Vialli has come through, a struggle with cancer as well. That matters a lot to Mancini. They were so close. The hijinks they got up to at Sampdoria are legendary, because those boys lived. Neither of them was hit with the ugly stick, and I think life was quite full for them, quite rich for them. But as footballers, they were blessed, not only in their individual skills, and for a long time, maybe even still today, Vialli was my favourite Italian footballer, and I got to know him really well. I'm still in touch with him. Mancini, I don't think I've met even once. But when Sven-Göran Eriksson talked about them, he talked about the president Mantovani at Sampdoria wanting to win things, which they did. They won the title, and they wanted it to be beautiful football. And he ceded control of football to his 2 players. So when they were looking for a new coach, Mantovani said to Vialli and Mancini, who should it be? And they jointly chose Sven-Göran Eriksson. And Mantovani took them to the meeting, I think down in Monaco, to meet the new coach for the first time so that they could interview Eriksson. It sounds barmy now, it sounds crazy, but it worked. And one of the things that unites them is that people talk about Mancini's style now in a sort of dressing room way, and that he's elegant, he could be the front cover of Vogue, and he was a beautiful, elegant, magical footballer. Mantovani, the president at Sampdoria, used to go to away games if Mancini was definitely playing, and he would ask Eriksson, if Mancini wasn't playing, Mantovani wouldn't go to the away games. But the key thing is that Mancini is a driven, hard-driven, remorseless, detail-obsessed winner. Because he's got this sort of movie star persona and looks and the coiffured hair and all that kind of nonsense, people might think that he's a little bit of a, just a sort of aristocrat who's playing at this. He's obsessed by detail, obsessed, always has been. And Luca Vialli is pretty similar. It's one of the reasons that he found coaching at Chelsea a little bit difficult, because he couldn't tolerate people who worked less hard or gave more effort or wanted it less than him. So as a partnership, they'll be pretty demanding, and I think that's been useful. If you look at the components of the Italy squad, you would say there's no AAA players there. A couple of B-plus players, Bonucci and Chiellini, are established legends. Donnarumma looks even at that age as if he could become something special. I don't think we can say he's there yet. And the rest of them are talented, but you wouldn't say that they're A grade and say, I have to have that player if I owned a club or in my fantasy team. So the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, in my opinion. I think that's a lot to do with the 2 coaches who demand so much of the group. And, they have it in their hands, because I don't believe that Hazard starts. De Bruyne, maybe. But the really brutish way in which Portugal treated those 2 players, particularly treated De Bruyne, robs us of the kind of game we should be seeing, which is Belgium at full strength.
Sure.
They looked a little bit tired against Portugal, but I thought they deserved to win. I was really impressed with them. I know Roberto Martinez, Thierry Henry, and Sean Maloney really well. Sean was telling me about how madly, before the goal he scored, how madly impressed they've been with Torgan Hazard. This is a game where, if Italy are not to do what everybody expects, then Courtois needs to be exceptional. Lukaku needs to score. I'm not really convinced about how much either of Eden Hazard or De Bruyne or the real Eden Hazard we get to see in this game. And it worries me because I don't want that kid to have more injuries given the couple of years he's had.
Yeah.
So against the run, and you didn't ask me for a tip, but Sean and I went to the same school. The coaching team at Belgium have been very good to me in my career. So has Luca Vialli. I kind of got, at least I'll say, I hope Belgium punch above their weight because they looked like winners. They still could be. And I think Spain is meeting one of them in the semi-final.
Yeah, a win for Belgium is a win for Scotland, Graham. Very briefly, before we let you go, because we're completely out of time, Lionel Messi, obviously, the ticker has counted down. His jersey has faded to black. Lionel Messi is out of contract at Barcelona. Will he be a Barcelona player signed up once again in a month's time?
60-40, yes. He's busy with winning the Copa America. The deal has not been trashed out and set aside and is about to be announced. There are problems to overcome. Is it impossible he leaves? No, it's not. But 60-40, yes, he's a Barcelona player again, I think.
Brilliant. Graham Hunter, enjoy the weekend's football. It should be great. Thank you.
Cheers on.
Cheers. Graham Hunter there on the line. It should be, as I say, just a brilliant evening, even though we might be robbed a little bit of the top-class Belgian talent that has made them such a good team over the years, but still, that game tonight, 8 o'clock, pretty much unmissable. Speaking of, we are excited to let you know that OTB Sports will be broadcasting full live commentary of all 9 matches from the British and Irish Lions tour of South Africa. Brian O'Driscoll and Alan Quinlan will be alongside Neil on commentary for the 3 test matches, with Devon Toner, Niamh Briggs and Jack Carty amongst the co-commentators for the warm-up games. Up next, it is the Sigma Lions versus the British and Irish Lions on Saturday at 5 p.m, live on Newstalk. Our coverage is brought to you in association with Vodafone, lead partner of the British and Irish Lions. You excited for this one tomorrow, Neil?
Yeah, Eoin, I'm most excited for how on radio I am going to frame the Lions have the ball versus now the Lions have the ball. What way I'm going to do that. So I've a bit of thinking to do between now and 5 p.m. tomorrow. I'm going to try work something out, get a little list of synonyms I could use. The tourists have it. The hosts have it. The British and Irish side. Warren Gatlin's men have the ball. The South Africans are in possession now. Just try and mix it up like that. So look, if you are listening in tomorrow, make a little tally of all the various descriptions I use to announce which team have the ball. Because if I just keep saying Lions in possession, we could be in for a very messy afternoon. It's going to be a very one-sided game.
Yeah.
The Lions just dominating possession for the entire 80 minutes.
Is it fair to say that the thing you're most excited about in this is seeing Owen Farrell and Finn Russell combine for what could be a fairly explosive, exciting partnership?
Almost. To be honest, the one I'm most excited about watching tomorrow is going to be Lewis Rees-Zammit.
Sure.
Because I just think he's an absolutely electrifying player. I was lucky enough to get to see him live in December 2019. So he was only still 18 at the time, and I absolutely did not know much or anything really about him going into the game. I remember doing my commentary notes in the lead-up to that. It was Connacht against Gloucester at Kingsholm in the Heineken Champions Cup, and I remember saying, okay, there's this 18-year-old kid starting that day actually for Gloucester, and it turned out he was absolutely unbelievable. And had it not been for COVID hitting last year as well, he probably would have got his chance earlier on in the Six Nations in 2020 as well, and would have made his debut roughly just after turning 19 years of age. But I think within a couple of weeks of this year's Six Nations, he was one of those players that had gone from being a potential bolter a couple of months back to being an absolutely nailed on. He's going to be in the wider Lions squad within the space of a few weeks, because he's just so skillful. He's an absolutely outstanding finisher. Is able to read the game so well for such a young player as well. So look, he's one player I'm absolutely seriously looking forward to seeing as well. And you would really think he does have an absolutely brilliant chance of making the test side as well. I think he'd be I remember reading during the week, he would be the youngest test starter since I think, Tony O'Reilly many moons ago to start a test game for the Lions. But aside from that, to go back to the original point, Finn Russell at out half and Eoin Farrell outside him, that is the spine of a pretty stellar backline that the Lions are picking tomorrow. The downside is we don't have as many Irish players involved. It's only going to be Ian Henderson and Bundy Aki available off the bench. It was probably inevitable after we had all 7 of them playing last weekend. But the idea of, like, Finn Russell, exciting at the best of times, but there's just an element of safety when you have someone like Eoin Farrell just outside him as well. You kind of feel like you're kind of able to have your cake and eat it, you know?
Yeah, I know. So what sort of constellation are you looking at in this backline then? Is it fair to say that it's kind of like jerseys up for grabs once again, or how are you seeing things set up? Is there a world basically if everybody plays well that Farrell, Russell, Stuart Hogg could all play in the one starting team?
I definitely think it's possible. I certainly do. I think the out half / centre combination is really up for grabs, and I think over the next few weeks, like we would have seen it last week, where traditionally, like it's all about just trying out the combinations as much as it is giving the individuals a chance to shine. Like, I think a lot of coaches, they will earmark the potential combinations they have in mind, and we would have seen it last week. Robbie Henshaw and Bundy Aki is a very obvious centre combination because it's been tried and tested many times for Ireland. And I think maybe leading up to just after the squad was announced, there was probably there was a fair idea that it seemed like Dan Biggar was probably going to start at number 10. Robbie Henshaw was going to be in the centre with one other player. But then you're kind of wondering, okay, is it a centre combination of Eoin Farrell and Robbie Henshaw, where Warren Gatland probably wants a second ball player in the centre. If you have Robbie Henshaw and Eoin Farrell, you have 2 ball players in the centres as well as your out half. Chris Harris is someone who bolted in from the outside, really strong defensively. Probably isn't as exotic an attacker as other players, but a very capable and competent defender and a very strong defender. It looks like a backline that has the bit of magic with Finn Russell at 10, but also a very solid combination in the centre of Eoin Farrell. So I'm definitely curious to see how that combination, that partnership of Finn Russell and Eoin Farrell will go tomorrow. And I think it could be absolutely excellent.
If we allow ourselves to put on our green-tinted spectacles for just a moment, do you feel threatened by Courtney Laws at 6? Does Tadhg Byrne feel threatened by Courtney Laws at 6?
I'd say you probably would, to be honest, yeah. And for good reason, because he's an excellent player. And the fact that there's so many ticks in the Courtney Laws box, I would say, because he's someone that Warren Gatland clearly trusts from 2017. He had an excellent tour, played in 2 of the 3 tests back in 2017. He's like Tadhg Byrne and even someone like Maro Itoje. He is that kind of Swiss Army knife of a player where you're just as comfortable playing him at number 6 as you are if you play him in the second row as well. He's an enormous tackler. He's like hugely physical, probably more physical than Tadhg Byrne, I would say, which when you're playing against South Africa, that is another massive tick in the box. And the fact as well that he's the 37th man in the touring squad, I just think is really interesting, because he didn't get to play much in the Six Nations. He was carrying injuries, hasn't played much this season at all. But the fact that Warren Gatland pulled so many strings to make a 37th spot available because he wanted to add Courtney Laws, I think that says a lot about the intentions he has for the player, and that he's always going to be a viable option when it comes to picking the test team. I think it's a really nicely balanced back row as well, just in general for Saturday, between himself, Hamish Watson and Tilupe Faletau.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Courtney Laws is... Personally, I'd probably have Tadhg Byrne starting in a test back row, but it kind of depends what way you want to go to. I think Tadhg Byrne, if you're looking to win ball on the ground. Courtney Laws, though, if you want to physically get on top of South Africa, is going to be definitely an option. I'd absolutely see him being on the bench, though, if he wasn't starting in the test.
Should be a really interesting battle for that shirt. On Ireland then, Neil, there's a whole host of really interesting storylines going into a game that maybe not a lot of people a few weeks ago thought that would be overly important. First of all, you're looking at the team sheet and you're like, that's a bloody exciting team, and I immediately want to see how this goes. But we should start with James Ryan. He captains the team against Japan tomorrow. Is this just a really quick recovery?
Yeah, I actually really don't know what way to call it. It's so hard to get a gauge on whether or not he has made a fast recovery, whether or not Warren Gatland wants to pick him anyway, because to do that, you would have to get into the mind of Warren Gatland, who has over time proved himself to be one of the most unpredictable head coaches in sport. So I think if you're trying to get into his head, you're off to a loser straight away. I've gone back and forth over this the last couple of days, or since yesterday, since Ryan was announcing the team. I really don't know what way I'm looking at it, because on one hand you're thinking, you know, Andy Farrell suggested anyway, at least, that Warren Gatland had been onto him sounding out James Ryan. Now that could be Warren Gatland ringing up Andy Farrell to sound out James Ryan. He might have also got in touch with Rob Baxter to ask about Johnny Gray after the Premiership final. He obviously also got in touch with Wayne Pivac to ask about Adam Beard. You know, maybe he sounded out 5 or 6 different candidates before deciding who the ultimate one was. Maybe it's also that James Ryan didn't, you know, he felt he was overlooked for the Lions and is doing everything in his power to make sure he was on the pitch this weekend. I think that is also an option, that he didn't get the call and decided, I am pushing through the pain barrier here. I'm going to play no matter what, and I'm sticking it on proving a point this weekend. I really do not know what way to fall down on it, because, as I said, you're trying to get into the head of Warren Gatland, and that's an impossible job.
This side in general, then, that back row, Peter O'Mahony, Van der Fleer, Caelan Doris, like, this is, again, I'm not sure, maybe it's like once you get to the second test in this summer, it'll be a much more weakened side. I just didn't expect to, it's almost jarring to see a Lions tour happening concurrent to a team that's stacked with Irish players. That back row in particular just looks ridiculously strong. Yeah, it does, and I think there's definitely a lingering bit of a resentment off the back of 2019 in the team selection here, that, look, they only have 2 games this summer. They've 12 or 13 uncapped players in the wider squad. I think a lot of people would have expected to see more than just Gavin Coombs being in line to make the debut this weekend, and I think that probably speaks volumes to the fact that they just want to put down a mark against Japan, and they want to make sure they get a win. It's obviously not going to make up for the 2019 World Cup defeat, but I think for a lot of players there's probably a point they want to prove to themselves. I know plenty of them weren't involved in the World Cup, but I think there probably just is a resentment there over the way the 2019 game went. For the squad Andy Farrell has over the last couple of weeks, it's probably as experienced at 23 as he could have picked. I know on the bench you have a few guys with 1 or 2 caps, Shane Daly and Craig Casey, but in the starting 15, like Peter O'Mahony and Josh Van der Fleer, James Ryan, Dave Kilcoyne, Jacob Stockdale, and looking at even someone like Jordan Larmour, who's up around the 30 cap mark now as well. There's plenty of experience in that starting 15. And in fairness to Japan, like, Ireland are showing them massive respect, because having seen them play last week against the Lions, like, they were very, very good in parts. You could just see that they had the bit of rustiness about them that they hadn't played since the 2019 World Cup, and in parts they were just sluggish and slow. But overall, they still had so much of the things that made them great in 2019. Huge ball carriers, really, really willing to have a cut and have an offload and bring the game to the opposition. I think in particular their back row is absolutely outstanding, and it's stacked with ball carriers. And the way they're going with a 6-2 split on the bench, like, I thought Michael Leach at Blindside last week, I thought he had a poor enough game, their captain, and I was expecting maybe Kazuki Himeno to come in, who was unbelievable for the Highlanders this season in Super Rugby, and was excellent when he came off the bench last week. I think it's probably just maybe a bit of, they're probably just keeping him rested after a long season. He was straight back in after a long season in New Zealand. They have huge ball carriers in the back row, and I think that would be an area of concern for Ireland. Probably why they've had to go so strong with the likes of Peter O'Mahony, Josh Van der Fleer and Caelan Doris. And one final bit then as well, obviously we're all just so excited to see Gavin Coombs getting a run for Ireland as well. I think that's going to be a massive moment for him when he steps out there tomorrow afternoon. Fully deserved. Maybe some people might have said it's overdue given the season he's had as well, but I think he's going to be a huge player to be able to bring off the bench and add some beef into that back row for the last 20 minutes.
certainly don't see an Ireland walkover by any stretch of the imagination tomorrow. I think it actually could be a cracker of a game.
It does seem, and maybe this just goes with the territory of there being a tour concurrent to the Lions tour, but it does seem that there's a hell of a lot of Irish players with a point to prove, and it's like there's going to be no lack of incentive on a multitude of different positions there. We should mention as well South Africa are playing against Georgia as well, so we'll get a bit of a read on where they're at. Shifty Lad has been back in touch to say, I'm going to try and sync play up to your commentary. That's enough of a compliment I can give, he says.
Good man, Shifty Lad.
Just look out for the Lions versus the Lions. Shifty Lad, keep a tally of how many times Neil says Lions and drink for every time Neil says the Lions. That's the only way through. But it's going to be a mad Saturday of sport. Right, it is 8:50 and we are delighted to be joined by Irish international basketballer Dayna Finn, as Pinergy was announced as the new official sponsor of the All-Ireland Schools Cup competition, following the extension of its Official Energy and Official Insights partnership with Basketball Ireland in a 3-year deal. To mark the exciting news, Pinergy also launched a special competition that will give schools across the country the chance to win key basketball equipment as they help to power the difference to ensure that schools are well equipped ahead of the opening games of the All-Ireland Schools Cup this September. For more details, just follow Pinergy on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Dayna, good morning.
Morning, guys. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. How are you getting on? Congratulations in order. The first senior cap at a big tournament is about to come your way.
Yeah, thanks a million. Yeah, delighted with the news. And I suppose we've been training hard the last couple of weeks since we've been given the go-ahead to go back and train. So, yeah, delighted and can't wait to compete at Europeans.
Has it been a difficult process over the last little while, seeing outdoor sports and training yourself in an outdoor sport, while basketball, obviously being part of the indoor regulations, has just been held back that little bit?
Yeah, it was definitely difficult, and I suppose for myself, I got to play football with Mayo there before Christmas, so that was great. And then I missed the basketball. I must say I did miss the basketball. The league got cut, so that was disappointing. And Europeans last year were taken away from us. So yeah, it definitely was tough, and individual training was even tougher at home. But I suppose I was happy to have Paige and my sister here training away, and yeah, a bit of football before coming back to the basketball. So yeah, no, it's been great to be back now, and I suppose nothing compares to being back in a team environment and competing at the highest level. So
you were tipping away at the basketball at home?
Yeah, we're trying to, no, myself and Hazel, and we have a little gym here and that, so it was handy. We had everything we needed, I suppose, to a certain extent. So yeah. And what is it like? Just one-on-one games constantly, day after day after day? No, well, sure, we'd played that odd one-on-one game, and it's good to have a rebounder as well and someone who challenges you. So it was really handy.
Is she a similar type player to you?
She would be, she would be very competitive, which it makes us clash a bit. But she's a guard as well. So yeah, she is very good.
So when is the first time you meet up with the team, given this is going to be your first senior cap? I presume you've been in and around the camp for a while.
Yeah. So I think we're 9 or 10 weeks back training. So it was great. About 9 weeks ago we had a kind of training and team meeting on a Sunday and went from there. And only last week on Wednesday we got cut. So like the team is very competitive. Like the girls who just didn't make it, it was very tough. Like we were hitting off each other at training and everything. So it was a very tight call, which is great. It's good to be back on the court. And I suppose some of the girls I would have played against but not played with, there's 4 of us that would have been on the under-20s all the way up together. So we kind of click great together. But the last 8 or 9 weeks have been great to play around players that I wouldn't have experience playing with. And we're coming together now and gelling good together. So it's great.
How many players got cut?
4 players, yeah.
Was there a sense of nervousness at the time? Was there any sort of concern that your place wasn't guaranteed?
I suppose there always is that uncertainty. But I think if you're confident in yourself and that you put in the work and you're going well at trainings and that, there's always that little edge that you feel you're going to get over. So yeah, no, there is always a sense of doubt. I mean, it's the Irish international team, so and it's my first year playing senior. So yeah, no, definitely there was a bit of doubt and nervousness, but yeah, thankfully over the line.
And how did you find out that you'd made that cut then, Dayna? Like, was it a case where everyone found out at the same time? Were you given a heads up? Were the players who didn't make the cut given a little bit of notice ahead of the rest of you?
Yeah, so to be honest, our head coach, James Weldon, called us. So he called us all individually and then just chatted to us. And I suppose then that evening at about 8 or 9 o'clock, it went up on Basketball Ireland. So to be honest, I actually only knew that I had made it and didn't know who else had made it or who got cut, because those things are very confidential until it gets out to the public. So yeah, no, we got a call, and I suppose that's when team meetings and all roles will start at the weekend. So yeah, we're only 2 weeks out, so it's crunch time at the moment.
And when the phone number comes up, or when James's number comes up on your phone, you see his ringing, are you thinking, right, this is the call that I'm making the squad, or this is the call that I'm not making the squad?
Yeah, definitely. I suppose, yeah, when James called me, it was Wednesday, it was a sunny day, so yeah, he asked, was I sunning myself? And I said, oh, well, yeah, I am. And the bad news is you'll be sunning yourself in Cyprus. And I nearly and geez, I got kind of a bit of it, but that's always good to keep me on my toes. But yeah, no, I was delighted now with the call, yeah.
Like, were you in Erasmus in Valencia as well over the last couple of years?
It was, yeah.
So like sunshine is just like, I mean, that's just like your second home at the moment, the Mediterranean.
Yeah. How much of it we'll get to see now, I suppose games will be the main focus, and with COVID and everything, we'll be in our bubble a lot. But yeah, no, it'll be great. I think it's 39 degrees in Cyprus at the moment, so there'll be no chance we'll be out in that if we're
Can I just ask about that period you spent in Spain, Dayna? Because it's obviously a basketball mad country. In terms of the culture that you experienced there, I presume you were playing a bit. What did you learn?
Yeah, so I played actually previously before I went out. I kind of looked for a club and to play with, because I couldn't go a year now without playing. And so yeah, I played with Valencia Basket club, and they actually have a professional team. And they have a load of underage, and the setup is amazing out there. In terms of culture, yeah, like it's different. Like the game is pretty much the same, and I suppose for language wise, it was easy enough because I know all the terms in English. So it was hard at the start, but it got easier. And then yeah, like it was really good, and I must say an experience that I'm so happy I had. But yeah, like they have on my team kind of a senior team, but a lot of it was kind of young. I think I was the oldest on it, whereas here, I know like with club teams, there's a lot of older players, and there's 27 to 30, so that was different. And they're very guard orientated. My team were. So I know here, like even club teams and the Irish team, like it's always good to have that big post inside as a guard to work with. So yeah, no, I definitely learned little bits, and being coached by different coaches is great too. So yeah.
Did you get time with the professional team there?
So I actually came home for a 2020 event, and that weekend actually that I was home, the coach texted me would I train with them that weekend, and it just actually happened that I was at home. But no, I didn't play with the professional team. Now if you're to go play professional, you can't play back amateur kind of league at home. So yeah, no, I didn't. But that would be one of my goals for the future. Yeah, would be to play. And I suppose being at Valencia, that like maybe I'll go back and play there. We'll see. But
how does it go down with Mayo GAA then when you say you're missing the start of the championship?
Yeah, I suppose like anyone, not I suppose not well, but it's hard to take. And I suppose for myself too, it's hard. Like there a few weeks ago, when previously the league campaign, I was back training with both the Irish team and the football, and I suppose it comes to a stage where it all catches up on me, and I go from, I suppose, do nothing individually, like compared to team environment to doing both sports at such high level. So I picked up an injury there, and I was out for, I suppose, 4 weeks. So I kind of had to, I suppose, make a decision just at the moment to kind of focus on the basketball and Europeans until I come back. I'm missing 2 championship games with Mayo, so that was disappointing, I suppose, with the injury, and coming to terms with missing those games and, you know, having to, I suppose, take a little step back was hard. But yeah, no, I think if the girls have a huge chance, we are playing Cav and Monaghan and Armagh. So if we get through the group stages, I'll be back kind of quarterfinal and being then with the team. So yeah, no, still training away with them and everything. So yeah, it's just difficult. But I suppose if I come home with a gold medal from Cyprus and we win the All Ireland, I'll be a happy woman. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and I presume that all those different experiences that exist in that Mayo camp contribute positively, because it's not just you who's playing other sports. There's obviously AFLW players in that camp as well, and people who've gone around the world, experienced professional setups, experienced international setups like yourself. I presume that all feeds back into a really unique culture for Mayo GAA.
Yeah, definitely. And I suppose with new management in at the moment, it's great. Like, everyone's kind of, I suppose, like the Irish team, just back together kind of after COVID and getting to know one another and, yeah, building that culture. So, yeah, and from the AFL girls down to a few international players. And, you know, it's great to have that experience and that different people's different perspectives on things. So, yeah.
So was the injury just pure burnout, just training with 2 teams too often?
I suppose it was kind of overload is what my physio said. So I kind of had a strained hip flexor, and yeah, it did take the 3 or 4 weeks, just pure rest, and I suppose a little bit of rehab and that. But yeah, I just needed the rest. I'd really burned myself out in those first 3 weeks, trying to do both. And like, it's different to any time. Like previously, it was easy to, not easy, I won't say easy to balance, but I had more of a leeway, and like competitions didn't come really close together. So like that Europeans is coming, Championship and League were together, like it's very close. So yeah, it just kind of didn't work in my favour, but at least if I get back from Cyprus and that, I can get back in, and yeah, hopefully, I said we've the quarterfinal and on to look forward to. So.
Does it make you think, even just during those 4 weeks or so, that, God, I might need to make a decision here?
Yeah, no, it definitely doesn't. I suppose I've done it previously last year and the year before, and it has worked out. Maybe like, so I might have to, but I like, as I say to people, like if both coaches are understanding and I can make the time, and I guess it's not as I'm training away from, if I'm away from Mayo, I'm training. If I'm away from the Irish team, I'm training. So I'm always on my feet, you know, keeping fit. So yeah, no, I don't, as of now, I don't think so. I kind of just had to take a little kind of step back kind of from competitive, I suppose, in case I get injured or I flare up again before Europeans. So that would be the main thing, is just mind myself before competing at Europeans.
So it is Andorra and it's Malta first up at the Europeans. When do you fly out to Cyprus to get to enjoy that sunshine?
We fly out the 18th, yeah. So we're only, with COVID restrictions, we're only allowed to fly out 2 days before the championships. Right. So, yeah. Well,
very best of luck with it, Dayna. Great catching up with you, and hopefully there's success in the horizon as well, just like your underage teams a few years ago.
Thanks a million. Thanks for having me.
Cheers. Dayna Finn there on the line, of course, Irish international basketballer and Mayo footballer as well. Just to mention again that Pinergy was announced as a new official sponsor of the All-Ireland Schools Cup competition following the extension of its Official Energy and Official Insights partnership with Basketball Ireland in a 3-year deal. To mark the exciting news, Pinergy also launched a special competition that'll give schools across the country the chance to win key basketball equipment as they help to power the difference to ensure that schools are well equipped ahead of the opening games of the All-Ireland Schools Cup this September. For more details, follow Pinergy on Facebook, Twitter and on Instagram. Just to mention as well that it is 9 and OTB AM is brought to you by Gillette. Good morning, start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. We should tell you as well what's coming up on OTB Sports Radio throughout the day. From 11 o'clock, we've got the Euro 2020 show. That is in the company of Eamon Dunphy a little bit later on. Jason Sherlock is OTB Gold, as you can see, from 1 o'clock. Friday Night Racing is up at 3 o'clock. Then there's a Legends interview as part of Team 33 with John Caulfield. And then OTB Gold with Chris Waddle is coming your way at 6 o'clock. So a busy day on OTB Sports Radio for the day ahead. Right, up next here on OTB AM, we are talking to former Kerry legend Declan O'Sullivan.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
After last week's warm-up against Japan, the Tour of South Africa starts for the Lions this weekend. Warren Gatland's side take on the Emirates Lions, and as usual, Off the Ball is the place to hear the game unfold. I'll be joined by former Ireland international Fergus McFadden for full live commentary from 5 o'clock as part of Saturday's Off the Ball. That's the British and Irish Lions against the Emirates Lions this Saturday, live on Off the Ball.
Why not check out the Boyle Sports betting app for the latest betting and stats on every player and team with the Boyle Sports Euro Stats Centre. Rated 4.5 stars on the App Store, you'll find all our latest odds and offers for the Euros. So remind us where to go, Stevie G.
Boyle Sports. This is betting.
18 plus, bet responsibly, gamblingcare.ie.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
So the 2021 Airgrid GAA Football Under-20 All-Ireland Championship was launched this week. Airgrid, the state-owned company, is charged with delivering a cleaner energy future for Ireland. And Declan O'Sullivan, who is Kerry's Under-20 manager, is with us. Declan, how are you getting on?
Good on. How are you keeping?
Yeah, very well. So you're underway on July the 12th, I think, in
July 15th.
July 15th. Yeah. My apologies. So it's a midweek game.
Couple of extra days to prepare.
Well, that's good. That's good. Yeah. I was just about to ask, how is the preparation? Because it looked like this was a championship that may not happen at all this year at one point.
Yeah, and I think that's the context we have to look at it. Just delighted that the Airgrid Under-20 Championship is going ahead. Obviously, at one point it looked like it might be under threat. So it's been fantastic, I suppose, since we got back out in the field. We had a couple of months there where we had, Zoom sessions and so on, which, is difficult for the players more than anybody. And this group has suffered quite hard, this age group over the last year and a half. So since we go back in the field, it's been really enjoyable. Everybody is appreciative of the fact that this competition is going ahead and that this opportunity to represent Kerry and perform. So it's been an enjoyable few weeks.
How hard was it to try and get lads at that age to buy into a culture based on Zoom and elements that don't involve kicking a football?
Easier than you'd expect. I think I have to say that, and we tried to cast our net far and wide. So we had a lot of players involved at the early stages. Up around 45, 50 players at one point, and we had no issues. I think there's a big desire, probably in every county, but in Kerry in particular, there's a big desire to represent Kerry, and we've got a great response and great attitude from everybody. So while it wasn't easy for anybody, there was still, it was still good that we were, could physically see each other working hard and so on. So there was some benefit to it, trying to build that connection and so on. But you can't replace, obviously, getting out in the field and being in a group. And that's been when it's really taken off, really, and players have been allowed to express themselves and so on. So, as I said, it's been really enjoyable.
You've worked at minor level as well as under-20 level over the last little while. What's the biggest difference other than the physical step up, the obvious step up?
Yeah, I suppose the under-20 more than anything is a big developmental stage for players. I think at minor level, you give information and you try, teach them good habits and so on, try to get them into the mindset of representing Kerry and stepping up the level from club football to inter-county football. But I think going on to under-20, boys are becoming men in some ways, and they've gone through that journey at minor level where they realise what it's about, but now they're looking themselves, they're more knowledgeable. There's so much information out there on social media and online in terms of coaching, in terms of mindset, in terms of conditioning and tactically even. So they're very interested in the game. They want information. They want to know some of the reasons, and not in a kind of an arrogant way. They just want to know the background to allow them to understand it better, so they can improve and they can implement it. Whatever you're trying to do, they want to implement it as well as possible. So from that point of view, the relationship, I suppose, between management and players moves on to a different type of level where you're treating them more like adults rather than maybe boys as you would be at minor level, and you're just trying to get them into the habits. Whereas, as I said, the relationship is different here, where you're building that understanding and you're treating them like adults and giving them information, and it's more, I suppose, a joint journey. I suppose you're looking for them to buy in, and you're looking for them to even start the process of leading the situation and trying to drive on training and that type of stuff. So I found that part of it very enjoyable.
Is that challenging for you? Are there players like questioning you at times here and there?
No, I wouldn't say questioning, but again, as I say, they want to know the reasons behind certain things. They want to know, what's the schedule, what does the next couple of weeks look like, what might the next month look like, in terms of strength and conditioning. I have a very good team around me, but they're engaging the strength and conditioning guys in terms of typical exercises, maybe because the experience they've built up now, maybe they're talking to them about other exercises they would like to do or other parts of their game they want to develop. And if they want to develop that part of their game, maybe it'd be the weaker leg or the weaker hand pass, maybe they should be doing different exercises. So as I said, that kind of relationship moves on to a slightly different level at this age group, which is great. And to be honest, Eoin, that's what you want to see. If you guys who are not asking any questions, are not thinking in that way, then I think you probably have a bigger problem. So you like to see guys asking questions. If they're questioning you, all the better, and then that's the way it should be, because at the end it's still a development role. So you're trying to prepare them for senior football, whether that is senior football with their club or with Kerry. They'll still have to get into that or go on that journey where they become leaders within their own senior setups. So that's the journey really takes off at under 20 level, I think.
I'd imagine some managers, when they get the job as manager rather than just being a selector, may try to be a little bit too hands-on. From the sound of things, that's not something you've had a problem with. When did you realise that? When did you come to learn that delegation is a big part of being a manager at intercounty level?
Yeah, well, I suppose I was lucky enough. I got involved with Jack back in 2015 in the minors, and then had a couple of years under 20s with him. So obviously, Jack would have good people around him, and he would have given me, delegated some, responsibility, and given me kind of freedom to do a bit of work and training on, which I appreciated, and I felt it really developed me as a coach as well. So, through my own experience, I realised the importance of it, and then obviously, for the last couple of years, I've been training my club, and again, you go on a bit of a journey. You mightn't have the same expertise around you, so you might have to do a lot of it yourself. But you realise by doing a lot more, there's other areas of management that might suffer, and that's fine at club level and so on. But look, you've so much respect for Kerry and the importance of the role that you want to get the best people around you, and you want to be able to give each area, the right time and effort and so on. So I acknowledged very, very early that, I need a good team around me. And I wanted to free myself up maybe just to build that connection with the players and have that, that kind of one-on-one discussions with players and that time and that space to go and try to talk to them and have this kind of understanding of exactly what we were trying to do and get them to buy into it in that way. So if you're trying to plan all the sessions, or if you're trying to be inside in the middle of every drill and trying to drive it on, then there's something else suffering as well. So, I think, the best, you're always learning, but you're trying to get that balance right.
What is the difference between the Kerry minor teams over the last half a decade or so and the Kerry under 20/21s teams? And why hasn't there been an All-Ireland medal? I guess is something maybe you get asked a couple of times. Is that something you can even afford to consider, that step up, and maybe the lack of an All-Ireland medal since Killian Young was captain of that 21 team? Yeah, no, it's a grade that we've historically struggled in, and look, there's been some reasons for it, which are unavoidable. I mean, a lot of Kerry players, obviously, when they finish their leaving cert, they go to college in Cork, Galway, Limerick, Dublin. And traditionally, when this competition is played, is January, February, March time, and it's difficult during the week then to get in the preparation that other counties would be able to do. Because if you look at some of the successful counties, Galway, for instance, a lot of their players may be in college in Galway, so it's much easier. Likewise, Cork would have a couple of colleges down there, so it may be easier in terms of logistics and so on. Look, I've no doubt that
if David Clifford played under 20 football, I think he would have an All Ireland, and that's not trying to be dismissive of other teams there. But Sean O'Shea, Diarmuid O'Connor, there was a couple of real marquee players who played a huge role in the minor successes, and were always going to be difficult then to fill that gap. So there's been some reasons like that, and then maybe there's been issues in terms of the recent past where players have been successful at minor level, and maybe they get into this false sense that every year is going to be like this, or it's automatically going to happen. And there is a big jump from minor to under 20, and there's a big jump from under 20 to senior. But you have to appreciate that just because you're a good minor doesn't mean you're going to continue to develop and be a good under 20. So I think the work has been put in there, but maybe in terms of hunger and desire, and sometimes, sure, we're all human, Eoin, sometimes even going back to my own time, we were unsuccessful at minor level, we were unsuccessful at under 20 level, but that was a huge source of encouragement in terms of trying to do something at senior level. We wanted to make our mark, and we had a bit of a chip in our shoulder, and we wanted to prove ourselves. So maybe that has been an issue, that guys have accepted that they have an All-Ireland minor medal, and they think it's automatically going to happen. But obviously that's not the case, and it shouldn't be the case. So that's healthy that those lessons hopefully may have been learned, and we have a very competitive, very hungry bunch of players, and I suppose in the circumstances as well, Eoin, this year of all years, I think it's kind of unique circumstance. So I think everybody is just delighted to be having the opportunity, and that kind of intensity and that enjoyment level is there. So I expect that for all counties, this competition will be very exciting, and it'll be a really interesting competition for everybody.
Absolutely. So as you say, July 15th is when it gets up and running for Kerry. I did want to ask you a couple of things about the senior setup at the moment. You mentioned Sean O'Shea there. His new role is fascinating. I'm sure you've been picking up on that for the first 5 games of 2021. As somebody who's played under 40, as somebody who's played much closer to goal as well, just what an achievement is this from Sean O'Shea to take his talents from one position to another, and I guess be so seamless in his new role and look like as if there's been no change at all?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think Shawnee, his ability is unquestioned, and he has that flexibility. He can adapt. He's played a lot of football even out around midfield, so he has that understanding of the game now, I think, and sometimes it actually helps you when you go inside, because you play so much football out on the 40 or midfield. You recognise what you would like to see as a centre forward or as a midfielder, what kind of runs or what kind of positions you'd like to see an inside forward take up. So he's probably using all that experience of playing outside with him. But he's such a good kicker. He's a great competitor as well, and I think it's a great option for Kerry, and he has a bit of size as well. So he's a difficult proposition for any defender inside the inside line in terms of the threat he poses. You can't really back off him because he's such a great kicker, and then if you get too close to him, he's built up and bulked up quite a lot. So physically, he's a difficult guy to take on now as well. So it's an exciting proposition for Kerry, and I think as well it allows him not to be predictable. So I mean, he can slip in there even without any management call. Depending how the game is flowing, that that understanding will be there with amongst the players that he can slip in. And by doing that, maybe he's taking a half back who isn't comfortable in the full back line. Maybe he's taking him into the full back line, which might create a mismatch or a situation which would be very good for Kerry. So I think from a management point of view, it's a good move. Let's see how it develops. But he's such a good competitor, and you can see even in his body language, he scores, and he's almost thinking about the next play again. He's kind of a ruthless demeanour about him, and I think in terms of leadership and trying to drive the team on, I think it's quite a good fit.
Because I was thinking about other players who've started at 11 and moved around the forward line, and the other person that comes to mind is Ciarán Kilkenny. How do those two roles differ, or how are they similar, and how O'Shea is being used by Kerry and how Kilkenny is in recent years being used by Dublin?
Yeah, I suppose, I mean, the big thing is that there's a bigger requirement for patience if you go into the full forward line, and maybe, I go back to my own time, maybe, you can go into playing club football and so on. That was the biggest thing I found, if you're centre forward, and again, if you're like Ciarán Kilkenny or Sean O'Shea, who likes to get on the ball and has a lot of possessions normally in that position, then suddenly you go inside and you find you're not involved in the game as much, and you get impatient and you may start drifting around. So that's probably been the most impressive part of both of them, that they've adapted really well to that element of it. They recognise that they have to adapt to the situation, and again, I think the threat that they have is that they can both kick with both sides. So I think for an inside forward, I think that's really important. It's not maybe as important out the field, but when you go in the inside line, the opportunities, you have to be ruthless and take them. And if you're both sided, then that really helps. So, and again, it's intelligence, and the modern game has gone like that. I think it's a really interesting game now for players that they can, within games, be flexible and versatile and so on. So, it just shows that the level of maturity, I suppose, that Shawnee is developing now, that he can carry out that role so effectively. But look, it's early days of it, and I'm sure when we get to the thick of the championship, you'll see him probably outside, probably a bit more than inside. But it's a great weapon for Kerry to have.
Just before we did this piece, I was looking at an old Sunday game analysis, which had 100,000 views of your Munster final against Cork in 2013. That was Kevin McStay raving about the kick passing, that lovely bounce pass in front of the full forward. We've seen plenty of that this year. Are you looking at the league and the championship so far and thinking, God, I wish I was out there playing those bounce passes or being on the other end of them?
Yeah, I mean, older players, when we get together, we start talking about it, and then the game has really, really changed. I think it's become more of a thoughtful game, I think, now, and I think I would have enjoyed, the kind of the flexibility and the thinking behind, even you look at kickouts, or if you look at positioning of players and so on. It's really interesting game at the moment, and look, I've no doubt. As the championship gets close, as we get into the championship and we get into maybe some more of the serious games, that space will be restricted and you won't see maybe as much as the free-flowing stuff as you've seen to date. But I think in terms of the coaching and so on, it's great to see that we are looking at attacking the game a bit more, and we are putting a lot of emphasis on getting numbers forward and so on. So it's really been enjoyable, and it makes for a great championship. And I think it suits Kerry that way as well, that even in their mindset that they're going after teams and that they have that flexibility where they can have that, if you look at Dara Moynihan and Paddy Clifford, their industriousness outside and centre forward allows someone like Sean O'Shea not to be needed outside there as much, and he can maybe drift into the full forward line and conserve some energy. I think if you looked at you can go back to the All-Ireland in 2019, the amount of work that Shawnee was doing, chasing back and working hard, and for a free taker as well, it's hard for him then to have that bounce in his step and that intensity when he has the ball to attack teams and punish teams, So I think Kerry are working on that in terms of trying to spread the workload, and I think, as I said already, I think Dara Moynihan and Paddy Clifford in particular have really address that balance maybe that allows the likes of Shawnee and David Clifford then to pose a bigger threat to the opposition. So they're the interesting elements of the game at the moment, where there's this great kind of flexibility in how teams play.
Yeah, it's a really exciting time, and it's going to be a really exciting summer ahead. Just a reminder that the 2021 Airgrid GAA Football Under-20 All-Ireland Championship was launched this week. Airgrid, the state-owned company, is charged with delivering a cleaner energy future for Ireland. Declan, it sounds like everything's going great. It's been brilliant listening to you talk about all that today. Best of luck with the championship now next month, and thanks a million for taking the call.
Thanks, Eoin.
Chris Mann.
Oh, you're kidding me. September.
Kyle Lafferty.
Are you joking me?
Is that right?
I know, it's not right.
Anybody else?
Leash, was it?
Like, that is one of the most stupid questions.
Darius Vassell? Seriously, you all need to just stay quiet. This is getting really annoying doing this quiz.
What is going on here?
Welcome along to the shoutiest segment on Irish radio. It is the scintillating, it's the stupefying, it's the splendido crappy quiz. Every Friday we pit three of Team Off the Ball up against each other in our no-holds-barred quiz of sporting factoids at the end of the week. Allow me to welcome today's contestants. Our first contestant today showed up drunk to work on Wednesday. He hadn't even been drinking the night before, he was just drunk on football. His senses had an overload of counter-pressing and zonal marking and inverted wingers and hot heat maps. It was a cocktail of happiness for Phil the Power Egan.
Morning.
Still hanging?
Yeah. Looking for a nice couple of days off to refresh for the quarterfinals and pumped, ready to go.
Yeah. You look pumped. You're ready to kind of add the cherry onto the cake that's going to be presented to you this weekend by getting back into the winner's enclosure. It has been a long time since we've had Phil Egan on this quiz. Our next contestant today can hear Frankie Dolan's words ringing in his ears as he goes for back-to-back crappy quiz titles. Will he park his supposed Mayo arrogance if he comes out on top again today? Or will he roar loudly, act in a brash manner and gloat for a full 90 seconds? I, for one, have no idea how it might go. Give it up for the humble, the reserved, the affable beast of Ballyhaunis, Nate Dog Murphy.
I know they're letting fans back into stadiums on. I hope it's a long time before Snowflake Sheahan is allowed back into a stadium. We know how upset you are at Mayo fans celebrating them scoring at some stage. You know, people enjoying themselves when they go to a sporting occasion. So I presume you'll be last on the list for tickets. Have you ever been to have you ever been to Croke Park where you weren't a little bit upset when you were leaving that maybe some of the opposition fans were celebrating around you? Did one of them use some bad language? Did they call one of the Kerry boys a name?
Where is this coming from, Nathan?
I'm just saying. You know, there's Frankie Dolan, top of the list, and you're not far behind. People in Mayo haven't forgotten about you, Sheahan.
And I haven't forgotten about them. Terrible, terrible people. Oh, there he goes.
Running away from the argument.
Somebody just decided to call me at a very inopportune time. Come on, I'm live in the quiz, people.
Yeah, well, I guess that's fair enough. I don't really have much else to say about it. Our last contestant today is getting himself hyped for his summer of commentating on the Lions tour to South Africa after taking a trip to Photo Wildlife Park and pretending he's on safari. It's your official Lions versus Lions commentator, Neil, that's Limerick City, Treacy.
Thank you very much, Joe. Looking forward to it. Long time since I've been on the quiz.
Long time since you've been here. Great to have you back. It is a proper clash of titans this week after we said the exact same thing last week and we're sorely disappointed with a poor enough fare. As ever, the format is the classic crappy quiz with a series of questions on a range of themes. Then it's the slip and slide of trivia, which is the rapid fire round. You can podcast a crappy quiz on otbsports.com or the OTB Sports app. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to click the thumbs up, even if you contribute nothing but misery to your day. Please send any questions you have via postcard to Crappy Quiz Quizmaster, Off the Ball Towers, Marconi House, Diggs Lane, Dublin 2. Round 1 is the boring questions round. It is never multiple choice. Phil, can you name the only player to have won the Champions League, the Premier League, the Europa League, the World Cup and the European Championships?
My God. I've a few in my head that are one short of that list. So,
do you want to roll us through your options that you're thinking?
No, so you're saying it's the Champions League, Europa League.
Did you say Premier League?
Premier League. Yeah. World Cup and Euros.
World Cup and Euros. Okay. N'Golo Kante.
No, N'Golo Kante hasn't won the Euros.
Fernando Torres?
It's not Fernando Torres.
I was thinking that. He won.
You're in the right country.
Mata?
No. Pedro is the answer. Pedro is the player who's won all of those things. Nathan. John Catlin last year became the first non-European to win the Irish Open in 16 years. Can you name the last one before him?
Oh my God. So long. Brett Rumford?
Correct.
That
is a good answer. That is a good answer.
Pulled it out of the bag.
Reputation saved, Mr. Murphy.
That's for sure. Neil. Who is the...
$3.99 a month, guys. $3.99 a month.
Neil, who is the oldest person to ever make a test appearance for the British and Irish Lions?
Oldest ever to make a test appearance for them. 2017... somewhere around 13. Could it be?
They happen every 4 years, Neil.
No, I'm running through squad names in my head.
2009.
I don't want to say anything out loud because Jojo has a habit of deciding that's your answer.
No. But the great thing is, if you get it wrong, you can say that wasn't your answer. If you get it right, you can just claim it.
I'm going to take a stab at Simon Shaw.
No, it's not Simon Shaw. It was 2005. At the age of 36 years and 174 days, Neil Back played for the British and Irish Lions. So
it feels like Simon Shaw was older.
Neil just can't say Neil Back's name on the radio.
Yeah.
No, I'm okay with Neil Back. We had a good. I interviewed him for Land of the Rising Scrum before the 2019 World Cup. Great chap. We had a lovely chat, and all water under the bridge. The true Munster fans, the true Munster people, realised that it was actually okay because, you know, if a Munster player had done it, there would be a statue of them in the middle of Limerick City. So that's what the true Munster people believe.
It's true. Round 2 is the traitorous managers round. After Rafa Benitez took the reins of small club Everton this week, this round will see how well you know your Steve Bruces from your George Grahams, your Big Sams from your Jose Mourinhos, and everyone else who crossed deep-rooted divides as a coach. Phil, which former Bolton manager was seen as a traitor in some corners and after being on the receiving end of Judas chants from neighbouring opponents said, if they were going to get biblical, it should probably have been Moses because I was the one who led them from the wilderness?
Which former Bolton boss? The only one I can think of would be Big Sam. Sam Allardyce.
No, it's not.
Oh! I was absolutely expecting that to be Big Sam.
Can you think of anyone who managed Burnley before Bolton?
Owen Coyle.
Owen Coyle. That's the incident. Great quote. Nathan, question 2 for you. Can you name the manager who replaced Alfredo Di Stefano at Real Madrid in '91, managed Atletico on 3 separate occasions, and also had the Barcelona job into 2000s for good measure?
Oh my God, the name has gone completely out of my head.
What are you thinking? What does his name sound like? Who is he?
So
not coming to you, is it?
Give me a second now. Give me a second.
Wait for the Google to come up here now.
No, it's not coming.
Give him the buzzer, Jojo. Radomir Antic.
Yeah.
Is the answer. Neil, question 2 for you. Can you name the 2 clubs Sven-Göran Eriksson managed that were in the same city?
The 2 clubs he managed that were in the same city.
Mm-hmm. Managed many clubs, and only 2 of them happened to be in the same city.
Trying to think. Lazio and Sam. No, these aren't my answers. I'm just listing clubs he's managed.
Just give Jojo a break here, Neil.
Lazio and Sampdoria.
He made one mistake. Sheahan makes mistakes every week and no one's at him.
I would have been watching these clips on social media. It seemed like there was a running theme over a few weeks when there were these bloopers happening.
Well, HR got involved, so we're not allowed to talk about it anymore.
You're literally on our last warning.
2 clubs in the same city.
We now know Neil's thing. Neil's thing is just repeating the question again and again and again.
Well, yours was just sitting there in silence for 20 seconds.
Yeah, and the silence, it's a killer.
Don't be afraid of silence, is what they tell you in radio school. Let it sit there. The problem is there's a lot of that in this particular slot.
I'm going to have a bit of a guess here. I don't remember him managing Roma, but I'm going to say Lazio and Roma.
Correct.
Oh, hey.
Great answer, Neil Treacy. Lazio and Roma, indeed.
I'll have that.
Not happy, those fans, about him going to the other. Round 3 is the European quarterfinals round. Phil, you're the only one on 0 points so far. Nathan and Neil both on 1. Round 3 is the European quarterfinals round. After one of the best rounds of football in the history of the European Championships, we are looking forward to the universe ensuring that these Euro quarterfinals are all dull. In the meantime, here's some trivia on the remaining teams. Phil, Andriy Shevchenko is obviously the top scoring Ukrainian of all time. Can you tell me who has the second most goals for the Ukraine national team?
I know he's close to him. I don't know if there's anyone in between them, but I'm going to say Andrei Yarmolenko.
Correct. He's only 6 behind. He's on 42. Shevchenko is on 48.
So double hat-trick against England.
Exactly. That's all it'll take. Nathan, before this summer, in what year did Belgium's best finish at a European Championships occur? Well, this is not their best finish before the summer. That was a fairly inappropriate clause there at the start of that question. What is Belgium's best finish? What year did it happen?
1972.
No.
1984.
No, 1980. They were beaten finalists in 1980. Neil, who is Spain's top scorer at the European Championships?
So I'm probably going to base it on modern times since they won it twice in a row. I'm thinking either David Villa or Torres. And I'm going to say Torres.
You should speak
Correct.
a bit
Oh,
slower.
get in.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
I apologise to all sensitive ears at 9:35 on this Friday morning.
Sorry, I apologise.
It was actually, you could have given me Alvaro Morata as well, their joint top. They both got 5 goals, bloated Euros and all that. Round 4 is the fun free magic number round. Neil Treacy has edged himself into a lead here on 2 points. Contestants get 3 points for getting the number exactly right. If no one manages that, the nearest contestant who doesn't go bust gets 2 points. The second closest gets 1 point. I'm going to state that we can only accept the answer that's written on your paper, and I'm also going to have to ask for your pens once the music ends. So, if you don't mind, give us the following number. The number of goals scored by Raheem Sterling so far at this year's Euros, plus the number of All-Stars won by Eoin O'Sullivan, plus the number of Wimbledon titles won by Novak Djokovic, plus the number of own goals scored at this year's Euros so far. Your 30 seconds expire when Sinatra sings Bright Shiny Beads. So, Sterling, how many goals has he scored so far at Euro 2020? How many All-Star awards did Eoin O'Sullivan win during his Dublin career? How many Wimbledon titles does Novak Djokovic have? And then how many own goals have we seen already at Euro 2020?
Bangles, hear how they jingle.
Okay, he's got his pen down. Phil looks like he's set. Neil is also ready. Neil, we might start with you. What have you got?
Not a very confident 22.
Nathan?
19.
Phil?
20.
The answer?
Whoa. Did Phil just change his mind there?
No, I have it written down. I went 20. I was actually using the visuals.
The countdown etiquette. The countdown etiquette.
Yes, exactly.
The answer is 20.
Oh.
So let's go through these. Raheem Sterling scored 3 goals at the Euros. You take us through these, Phil. How many All-Stars has Eoin O'Sullivan got?
I put down 2.
He's got 3.
Okay, so I know what happened then. I put down 6 for Djokovic, so you're going to tell me that's 7.
Djokovic does have 6. And there's been 9 own goals scored at this year's Euros. And Raheem Sterling's got 3.
That's 21.
No.
Go through it. Go through it. Start to finish there, Eoin.
It's really not. 3 plus 3 is 6, plus 5 is 11, plus 9 is 20. 3...
You said he had 6.
Novak Djokovic is 5, sorry.
Okay, so that's where I had put down 6, but I had 2. So
I put down 4.
So, Phil, did you get every answer wrong? Except you actually got the correct answer.
I got the correct. This is like maths, where I used to just go to the back of the book and just ask the teacher, and like, how did you get it?
Yeah.
I got 3 of them right, and I got 1 off on Djokovic.
So, Phil, you get 3 points for that. It's a great score. And that's it, really.
What do I get?
There's the second closest gets 1 point, so you get 1 point, Nathan. Phil, you get 3. So that brings you to 2, Nathan. Phil, you're on 4. Neil, you're also on 2. We tossed a coin before going on air, and if it is Neil versus Nathan, Nathan gets to go first. So the order in the final will be Phil, then Nathan, then Neil, and it is the round that separates the men from the boys, the British and Irish Lions from the Tree Lions. It's a no team in particular, ridiculously easy rapid fire round. The score you get in this round will be added to your score in the previous round. There will be 40 seconds for everyone to answer from the same set of questions. So, as I say, we're going to start with Phil, then Nathan, then Neil. If you get a question correct, I'll keep asking you questions until you get one wrong, and it also means a deduction of 1 point. Phil, are you ready?
Yep.
Your 40 seconds starts now. Who were crowned Western Conference champions in the NBA this week?
Clippers.
No, Phoenix Suns. Who are National League champions in Camogie, Nathan?
Kilkenny.
Correct. Who's older, Carlo Ancelotti or Sam Allardyce?
Sam Allardyce.
Correct. Thorgan Hazard plays for what club?
Borussia Dortmund.
Correct. Who did Limerick beat in the Munster hurling final last year?
Waterford.
Correct. Which club did Nuno manage immediately before Wolves?
Porto.
Correct. What event will Mark English run at the Olympics this year?
1,500 metres.
No, 800. Who knocked Netherlands out of this year's Euros, Neil?
Czech Republic.
Correct. On what course will this year's Ryder Cup take place?
Yes.
Whistling Straits.
Correct. You did come relatively close, but Nathan Murphy brings it home. Just to confirm, Phil finishes on 3. Nathan, you started on 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You finish on 6. You are the champion once again.
The champ. Now, people in YouTube, he has taken down Phil Egan back in your box.
That was it. By the way, you asked me a question about a sport that I can't stay up to watch because I work early shifts.
Here. Come on.
Phil, I'm going to disagree with you here. I've been in on that. I've been in on that shift many times alongside you, Phil. And on Sky Sports News, all they do in the early mornings is tell you who won in the NBA games the night before.
This is embarrassing.
Because that's all the content they have.
Phil, you've been beaten. Now you're humiliating yourself.
So, Nathan.
Oh, I can't stop. I'm tired. Come on, you're tired. It's literally your job to know this stuff.
All I want to say
now you're too tired.
Is that Nathan is finally...
So wait a second. Will I tell Ian Dempsey? Oh, sorry. Phil's going to give you the sports news. Unless something happens after 8 o'clock in the evening, then he's a bit tired and he might get to it.
Obviously not.
Is that what we should be telling Ian Dempsey? No, is that what we should be telling them?
I don't stay up till 3 in the morning, do I?
Check Kelly text in the morning.
The next morning.
The cut-off.
So wait a second. So when the Olympics start and some of this stuff is on till 2 in the morning, so if Kelly Harrington wins gold at 2 in the morning, don't tune in to Ian Dempsey because you won't hear it because Phil will have been asleep and can't check it in the morning. You've embarrassed yourself. You've let yourself down. You've let yourself down. Get Adrian Barry back. Maybe get Rooney back. Come on.
The thing is, I guess, Frankie Dolan has a vision of what life might be like if Mayo were to ever win in All-Ireland. We've just seen it right
horrible,
there.
Isn't it?
Mad to think he called them arrogant, isn't it?
It's a flashback to Coppers in 2006. That's what that is.
Nathan, I want to hear about that night in Coppers, whatever happened there. Nathan, congratulations. You're a deserved winner. OTB AM is brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. Big day coming up on OTB Sports. Eamon Dunphy's live at 11 o'clock. At the weekend as well, we're going to have the Emirates Lions against the British and Irish Lions from 5 o'clock live with this guy, Neil Treacy. We will leave you this morning, though, with part of Nathan's interview with Stephen Kenny from last night. It's absolutely brilliant stuff. We'll see you on Monday morning.
On the European Championship, what will stick with everybody after this isn't even the attacking football and some of the brilliant matches we've seen. It was that moment when Christian Eriksen fell to the ground and everybody feared for the worst. And thankfully, the wonders of modern medicine and science kicked in, and Christian Eriksen is still with us at 29 years of age, will go on and will live. You went through a similar incident, you were telling me off air, a couple of years back. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, no, it was very striking seeing Christian Eriksen. It was very traumatic and very vivid. I think, and what struck me was not so much because at the time looking at it on the TV, I thought Christian Eriksen had died. I got the impression he may have died. Wasn't sure, but the question mark was there. And I think Damien Duff and Jackie Hurley and Liam Brady were in the studio and they were, shaking, and I think definitely, and it brought back to my own situation, of course, which, I've not spoken about before, which was 2 years ago, of course, and more or less, it was, we played with the Ireland under-21s, we played Sweden, and in Sweden, away game, and we won 3-1. It was a great performance, Troy Partis scored 2 goals. The following morning, we went and on the flight, I wasn't feeling well on the bus going to the airport, and at Glaxo Airport, which where we were flying from, I had a not too similar incident on Christian Eriksen, a similar incident. It was quite an ordeal.
Right. So, in terms of the similarities, a heart issue.
Yeah. Listen. I just said at the time that Dr. Ronan Kearney, he was our under-21 doctor, but funnily enough, he chose that weekend to get married,
right.
Which is nice of him, But I think so. We had a new doctor in that weekend. It was Mortimer O'Connor, who stepped up from the under-17s from Cork, and so it was a baptism of fire for Mortimer, and he did brilliantly. I think
So what happened?
I was just obviously I wasn't feeling well, and I just really collapsed, I suppose, of course, I've been informed since, obviously, the Dr. Mortimer and Damien Doyle, the fitness coach, done CPR, and Damien had to do CPR while the doctor got the defibrillator and so forth, and the paramedics in the airport were on the scene very quickly, and all of the players had gone through. All of the players had gone through. It was scheduled flights. It wasn't a charter flight in the under-21s. So all the players had gone through, and some staff. So it was just a certain number of staff had stayed with myself because they knew I wasn't well. And then when that happened, obviously none of the players didn't see it because they were gone through to the other side to get the flight. So, but there was a sort of big scene at the airport, all right. And
so you collapsed suddenly?
I did, yeah. And
similar to Christian Eriksen, just...
Well, it was subsequently I'm informed it was, electrical issue, with my heart, just there was a block really of electricity, the electricity that your heart needs.
Right.
So certainly it was traumatic enough at the time for everyone. For me, looking at sort of Christian Eriksen's situation, it impacted me because I realised, I got serious flashbacks because I seen the impact I had on the people around the situation at the time. So lucky enough, I had, people around me who were my staff and colleagues and friends, Keith Andrews, Jim Crawford, Damien Doyle, and fitness coach was there, Colm O'Neill, who was a physical therapist. They were all in the vicinity at the time, and a lot of people in the vicinity. So we were all trying to address the situation. Obviously, it was very, very serious because I hadn't realised the course,
And had your heart stopped?
They couldn't get a pulse. They couldn't get a heartbeat. So they apparently had turned blue. So it was certainly such a serious situation. So I think it was just a blockage of electricity to the heart, the flow of electricity to the heart. And I think one of the, like Jim Crawford said to me at the time, or the following morning, I'm not going to lie to you, Stephen, I thought you were dead, and I thought you were gone. And Kieran Crowley, my press officer with the under-21s, he got on the flight with the players, and he said at the time that he got on the flight for an hour and a half, and he said it was the longest flight of his life, that he got on the flight and they were on the flight and he wasn't sure, he thought it might be dead. So
waiting to land and see what the text would say.
Waiting to land, yeah, exactly. So it was I'm very grateful. I had great medical care. Mortimer, the Dr. O'Connor, done brilliant. All of the staff, Keith Andrews was amazing. Jim Crawford, Damien Doyle, Fergus, our kit man, they were all around. Colm O'Neill, Kevin Mulholland. So all the people around.
They've been able to tell you what they did, how they reacted. Yeah,
well, what happened really was once I seen the Christian Eriksen situation last week, I sort of reflected on it, and I started just ringing them and wondering how it affected them, because it revisited. We nearly moved on from it, all of us, and and I just was saying, you know, how did it affect you, and how, you know, what was the impact? And they all had their sort of anecdotal stories in that they didn't think that, you know, that I was going to survive at that time, and so it was, you know, it was quite traumatic.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like it. And when you're talking about having flashbacks when you saw the Christian Eriksen incident, are you having flashbacks from your own point of view as well? Do you remember the minutes leading up or the minutes just after? Do you remember around the time that your heart stopped?
Well, I think the you know, I do. I was unwell and I just passed out, and I just so I remember then. I just remember waking up as they come into the ambulance.
Okay.
As I was sort of been put in the ambulance, you know. And
had you any sense of what had happened?
I didn't really know. I said, my wife Sheahan had come back as a mature student and done mediation course, and you know, in Maynooth actually, and our graduation was the following day.
Right.
And I just remember waking up and saying, I need to get on the flight. Siobhan's graduation's tomorrow. And that was the first words I actually said.
Who was with you in the ambulance?
So the medics, you know, we just went to the hospital there, and they all come back. Everyone went on the flight except obviously 5 of the staff stayed. You know, so some of the staff had to look after the players because they were getting on flights back all around England, and you know, some of the people back to Ireland. So it was a, you know, as I say, it's you're on scheduled flights with the under 21, so you're going to different cities in England and so forth. So certainly, you know, 5 of the staff stayed overnight then, and so they, you know, they were just delighted to. It was quite traumatic for them, more so than for me, you know, because when it's happening to you, it's happening to you. There's nothing, you can't, you know. But for the people around it, it's much more traumatic. And yeah, so it was. I had great support, as I said. All of the people, all of the staff were amazing, really. And you know, when I spoke to them all over the last since it happened, the Eriksen situation, because I just sort of revisited it, and they were so vivid with their stories,
right?
You know, and you know, so it was, you know, that's the way it was.
When you get to the hospital then and you're awake and you're undergoing treatment, when were you told exactly what had happened? That what is a heart attack the right term?
I don't think so. You know, it was just to stop of electricity to the heart, and I think my heart is quite strong, but I needed to have an operation in the hospital in Sweden.
Okay.
And I got a pacemaker, so I was in the right place. Obviously, Sweden's famous for its medical system, its medical care, if you like. And they said that, listen, you've come to of all places to come. The pacemakers, they were very proud of the fact that they've been invented in Sweden. You know, pacemakers are invented in Sweden, and they were, you know, talking me through it. So I had a few days rest and recuperation there, obviously, and then before I was operated on, and but so I just went to the theatre there, and you're awake in the operation as you go into this sort of big which is like a big industrial unit, and these young Swedish doctors, and they talk to you while you're being operated on, and you know, they're
putting in the pacemaker.
They're putting in the pacemaker, yeah. So it's almost surreal, you know. It's like an out of body experience thing. Yeah. Like it's you know, it's quite surreal, but it was it's brilliant, really. It just meant obviously. It was a congenital. It's been diagnosed as a congenital issue.
Okay.
Just my heart skipped a beat very rarely, very, very rarely. And if it ever did again, the pacemaker just kicks in. So that's really it, really. And
so nothing to do with the stress of the job, because I do remember at the time there were reports that you'd taken ill in Sweden, and I think it was said you had chest pains, and I know when you came back and you did your first press conference afterwards, you know, you were keen to move on from it. When you were told it was a heart issue, did you think it was the stress of the job, or it must have been a heck of a shock because I think you turned 50 this year. You're a very young, fit man.
I was probably 47 then,
right.
nearly, and I think so. It was a congenital issue, and certainly, and so I'm not aware of my family history in regard to that. I've no knowledge of my family history in relation to medical issues.
Right.
So I think it was that's what they described it as, really, just an issue. But it's my heart is really strong, and I think now the pacemaker is terrific. It's completely. It's unobtrusive, and it's certainly very easy to live with. And the only problem I have is going to the amount of flights I take going through airports.
Right.
You can't go through scanners. So I'm the most searched person in the history of the airport. I've been you can't go through the scanners, and certainly you've got to sidestep them and be consistently searched. So I'm searched. I'm flying to England, of course, and everywhere, a few times, all of the time, and. So that's the only issue, and so that's it.
Yeah, much like with Christian Eriksen, while there's the obvious initial devastation that this has happened, there's a real relief that he was in the right place, that he has the very best medical attention, able to run onto the pitch and be with him in 20 seconds, and that was so vital to keeping Christian Eriksen alive. Likewise for you, that you're there, surrounded by the Irish team's medical staff. When you've spoken to them since, I presume, was it CPR within seconds of it happening? Did the team doctor realise exactly what had happened?
Yeah, no, it was almost surreal because as Mortimer O'Connor, the doctor, that was his only match with the under-21s,
right.
So
did a good job.
That was his only game, so he did terrific. And I know he's actually with Jim Crawford now with the under-21s,
right.
And he did terrific. And all of the staff, Damien Doyle around that, Keith Andrews been brilliant to me.
Yeah.
We've gone through a lot, and of course Jim Crawford is there, and all of the people around us were terrific.
Yeah.
The medical staff, all of the physios.
They to use a defibrillator was the one in the airport?
They did, they used the one in the defibrillator, and so I was very lucky that I had the people around me at that particular time, and I'm very lucky, that it was great that Sweden wasn't a bad country for it to happen in. I was quite lucky in that regard as well.
You mentioned there that your wife Siobhan had a big day the following day. Who made the call to her? Because
she got. They called her, and it was obviously it was shocked. Siobhan's always very strong. She's been strong on issues, and she was amazing. She flew out to Sweden straight away, and obviously we had a week in Sweden there. And
you can be strong, but receiving a phone call completely out of the blue that your husband has a serious heart injury and his pulse had stopped a few minutes earlier is not a call, no matter how strong you are, that is easy to deal with.
Yeah, no, she was terrific, and she flew out, and she stayed, of course, for the week that I was out there.
I think a lot of the time, girls, if you go from a mixed school to maybe an all-girls secondary school, there's a high emphasis on academics and, academic achievements. The girls, she's not very sporty, but, she's really good at, say, music, or she's really talented at art, and like, those things are awesome, but they're not really, given the same merit. And, I mean, I remember being told that, you should probably cut back on some of the sports and, put your head down and focus. But like, that wasn't coming from the home. Like, our parents were amazing. I remember, you'd be told to stop studying to come down and watch the Champions League, or like,
wow,
just take a break, or if Munster were playing at the weekend, I suppose we never gave our parents any trouble, but I think combining the academics with sport needs to be looked at a bit more for females. And even when you think about like sports scholarships and what's on offer, like there's always like way more sports scholarship for men. So maybe that encourages them to keep up sport in secondary school a bit more, because if they combine the sport and academic, they'll get a scholarship. Whereas female, I don't know how many hockey scholarships are there, like what's available. So yeah, definitely. I think they're improving, but a lot more can be done.
Football's a strange game in many ways, Nathan. I mean, it could go in the next match and he'd be the old jacker. It could. You know what I mean? It like, even the stop clock is right twice a day, Nathan. There's an old saying. So it could be one of those days where he did everything right, everything went for him, and that. Why is he able to do it in one match and we haven't seen it like that at all before? You know, which is the real Xhaka? You know, you'd have to go on the amount of matches where he hasn't done it.
Yeah.
And fingers crossed, from Switzerland's point of view, that he does do it again and continues to do it for Arsenal. Let's keep it. But where has he been, Nathan? He's not a kid, you know. And
is it passion? Is it in
France? Maybe winning 5-0.
Yeah.
And most of it was because Xhaka was captain of Switzerland. I mean, the first match they played, Italy hammered them 3-0, and they've hardly won a match since. And then they come out and do that. But I think, obviously, I'd give him full credit for doing what he did. But I'd give an awful lot of credit to the French attitude, the French team's attitude in that particular match. It was really, really totally unprofessional.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best